Okay, I call the,
I know.
Dan, you ready?
Forte.
Okay, I call the Planning, Environment, and Development Committee meeting of February 7th to order. Roll call. Mr. Geidemauer. Here. Carolyn Campbell.
Here.
John Reinert. Here. Jim Kearns. Here. Carl Kaminsky, and I'm here. We have everyone in attendance except Lou Ness. We'll move on to minutes for approval. Can we get a... It's moved by Jim, seconded by Joe for the minutes. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes?
I'll ask.
Seeing no discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. We'll move on to public comment. Mr. Vanderspool's here, so we're going to have some public comment, it looks like.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else on there, Jim?
Yeah, there's two. Getting the first slide.
Thanks.
Good morning. I am Jan Vanderspool, resident 8708 Bull Run Trail, Woodstock, Illinois, in Bull Run Estate Subdivision.
Mr. Vanderspool, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're going to hold this to the same as the regular board meetings for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we have a scheduled today with a lot of interviews and stuff, so, okay, please go ahead.
Okay. I thought I was complying, have been complying with that. I'm fundamentally an objector to ADUs in estate zoning. I'm taking a couple of different approaches in my proposals for you today. I just am really struggling to understand how adding a rental unit to a single family estate property is, it seems so incongruent. And I remain pleading with the committee with my first item that I've repeated, and it's kind of fallen off the table with requesting notifications. The whole fundamental issue to that is that when I first addressed this committee in August of last year, it was kind of quipped, oh, an unintended consequence, because the ADU was up and under roof without any reasonable opportunity for me to object in court. And it really hasn't been addressed yet. If neighbor notification isn't the answer, then I'm moving on to removing ADUs as applicable to estate zoning, and then proposing that if you really want to make it multi-family estate, so to speak, create a new zoning category called ER or whatever you want to call it, and just take ADUs out of estate zoning. I provided some handouts that try and branch out in something that Ms. Ness has talked about, affordable housing. Both the handouts, I think, are intended to kind of steer the committee for ideas on how the county can support that. Specifically, I handed out a Chicago ordinance. It's called additional dwelling units. And by the way, I think additional is what the word should be, not ancillary. Just get away from this idea that it's a cute hug your granny pod. It is a rental unit. It's an additional dwelling unit. It should be called what it is. The second thing I handed out is, admittedly, I'm sure, an advertisement for the company that put it on the web, called How to Get by Right Zoning Right. It refers to...
Mr. Vanderspool, if you would summarize your comments, please. The 3 minutes is there.
My 3 minutes is up. Please take a look at the rest of my proposals. I urge you to keep ADUs on the agenda until you've had at least an opportunity to test them and see if there's any response and, you know, let it fall off the table if it's appropriate. Thanks for your help.
Thank you. Spring Duffy?
I'll hold my comments until the old business 8.1. I'm here for any questions.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Kerpel.
Morning, everyone. My name is David Kerpel. I am the founder of Forever Home Dog Sanctuary, which I created last year. After deciding, after 25 years of being an attorney, I wanted to follow my dream, which is to rescue, rehabilitate dogs, and our mission is to go to shelters where dogs are not being, the ones that are not being adopted, whether because of their age or because of their health, ones that basically have spent their entire lives or will spend the rest of their lives in 4x6 cages. We want to pull them out and give them a much better life, try to rehabilitate them if we can, foster and adopt them out. If not, they'll spend the rest of their lives on our piece of land. And that piece of land is in McHenry County. We found a piece at the corner of Zornsdorf and 173. It's 5 acres and it's unincorporated. And currently there is a house there which we plan to have a full-time caretaker to be on the premises 24 hours a day to make sure, you know, the dogs are doing all right and that they're not creating a nuisance to any neighbors. There's a structure there though, and this is why I'm here. It's a 100 by 200 foot pole barn we plan to use for the inside play area and for dog runs. And that structure, while allowed for with farm animals to be within 20 feet of the lot lines, dogs under your ordinance requires 100 feet, and that is why I'm here for the variance. The use is allowed. Fortunately, McHenry County has something for animal care shelters, so the use is allowed, but because 80 feet of it is within the 100-foot lot line, we need to get a variance from McHenry County and ask for us to be allowed to use that portion of the pole barn. We have gone through the hearings with a hearing officer both in December and in January. It was a 2-part hearing. I brought people to talk in support of the reason why it's a good idea and won't create a problem. First of all, it's not a shelter, it's a sanctuary, which means there's going to be a lot less traffic because once the dogs are there, for the most part, they're going to be there for a very long time. Also, there's not going to be a lot of activity with the dogs. Once a dog is there, the barking will be fairly minimal because they'll be barking when there's maybe new people there or volunteers, but that's really not, there's not going to be a lot of activity on a regular basis. So based on the fact that our architect, who was also present at the hearing, was able to talk about the sound attenuation engineers that he's speaking with and experts that he's speaking with, we're going to insulate the inside of the barn for both warmth and for sound reduction. And we're going to make every effort to be good neighbors. This is something that's very important to me. It's very important to me so that I am not enemies with anybody, that I get along with people. So we're going to make sure that this is, you know, a top-notch area. Each dog is going to have at least 8 foot wide by 10 foot long dog runs inside and outside, and they're going to have like their own little cottages, and you know, basically there's no ordinance, there's no restriction for number of dogs, but right now we've made concessions so that instead of having runs on 3 out of the 4 sides of the pole barn, we've removed dog runs on the side that is adjacent to the neighbor. We have agreed to also remove dog runs on the side that is on the east side of the pole barn, which is also closest to the neighbor. So we are only going to have dog runs on the south side, which is the side furthest away from the neighbor. We're not going to have them out at night. You know, basically we're going to comply with the ordinance and the rules of McHenry County. And let me see if there's anything else. What's my time?
We're at 3 minutes.
We're at my, okay, very good. So that's all I want to say. I'm just really looking forward to making this a reality. We've been looking for over a year, and fortunately we found McHenry County. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Great
Kerpel.
cause.
Yeah, he went in front of the hearing officer, so that'll be coming to the board at the next meeting, I believe.
21st.
21st, yeah, okay. We won't be voting on it or dealing with it here on any level, but just, he wanted to speak, so a little more background for when we vote at the county board meeting. Okay, that's the end of public comments. Member comments? Anybody wants to speak this morning? Okay. New business. 5.1 at 8:40, we have our interviews begin. And Carolyn Schofield is here. I think we need to, yeah, go ahead, come on up. Carolyn, if you would, please, that'd be fine.
Do we know
This is Jim.
Please.
you sit next to me.
Introduce yourself, please, and tell us why you're here.
Do we have to introduce ourselves?
I know, yeah.
Don't think I've ever seen her before.
Introductions on this one, so,
Oh, you in the nice smiley sweater.
yes, exactly, I wore it, just to show you how I feel these days, you know.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So, I'm Carolyn Schofield, I live in Crystal Lake. It's good to be back, and I know you all have my information, but I'll just give you a little recap. So probably over 20 years ago, I started in Crystal Lake in public service. I was appointed by the mayor because of my background in environmental engineering. He asked me to be part of the plan commission at the time because they were developing their Vision 2020 plan, their comprehensive plan. So it's crazy to think that that's actually been formulated coming on that year. So that's how I started. Spent 10 years on then what became the Planning and Zoning Commission in Crystal Lake, 4 years on the city council there, then joined the county board in 2012, and as you know, 8 years on this committee, 2 of which I chaired it, and during that time I also chaired the 2030 and Beyond Plan Update. I was part of the, I saw the UDO mentioned in there too, part of the committee that wrote the UDO and all of the other plans that were incorporated into that report. I either was part of the committee that developed those, or they were approved during my time on the county board. So also the past 9 years I've been the McHenry County representative for the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, of which I came on board with that right after the 2040 comprehensive plan, the regional comprehensive plan adoption, and then chaired the plan commission or plan committee with CMAP when we had the development of onto 2050. So the point of me saying all that is because I'm very familiar with the comprehensive planning process. I don't think you'll find anyone that has spent more time developing or being part of development of comprehensive plans, not only locally, countywide, municipal, county, and regional. I have gone through 2020, 2030, 2030 and beyond, and 2040 and 2050. So I'm very familiar with that process, which is critical, I think, for this position from the standpoint of it's kind of halfway there. You're not quite halfway there in this development, but I can jump right in and know where it's at, know where we need to go. I did watch the video and read through, I didn't get through all 135 pages yet, but very familiar with all the plans that are incorporated into there. I am still on CMAP, and I'm a vice chair at CMAP, so have access to that information and knowledge and update, which one critical piece of the comprehensive plan is, I think, staying on top of that information, in particular what the future holds in the wake of COVID and how that's affected the future of planning. And CMAP is very good about producing studies and statistics, so we do get updated information and have access to that information. And then I was one of the key stakeholders that was interviewed in this process. So they mentioned, I think there were 9. So I was one of those that kind of gave feedback on where McHenry County, my vision, and from what I've been hearing, I think it's really important to know the process, know the past, and then know that we really need to listen to people in order to prepare for the future. So I think that's the critical point, and I have experience in doing that, and I'm open to any questions you guys may have.
Okay. Well, you answered my questions, because I was going to ask if you were still on CMAP. I thought you were. I wasn't positive. Anyone else have anything for Carolyn?
Which is not a conflict at all. I mean, a CMAP,
No, I don't see it as
Yeah.
conflict, I see it as a benefit.
right.
So, unless somebody else tells me different. Go ahead, Jim.
I think I know most of your opinions, but I'm going to ask this just to clarify. Your opinion of the county agriculture urbanization, where do you lie in that opinion of how the county should treat those?
Well, and I thought it was, I was actually a little disappointed in the presentation that, I don't know if you guys saw it, that the RPC got last time from the agriculture person. And he was really negative, I felt. I don't know, Mary, if you felt that way too, but like I felt like he kind of was saying like agriculture was almost like going to be a non-entity, almost non-existing, that it was not going to sell. And I was disappointed to hear that, because I think agriculture in McHenry County is such a valuable asset. And I think the two together is actually the way of the future. I mean, I think a lot of the millennials, as well as just where we're at, again, in the wake of COVID and supply chain issues, is we really are going to need to rely more on local foods, local agriculture, and really embrace that and find ways to maintain it so that it can exist. And you know, in that plan, we have that development really should occur from the municipalities and not, you know, just in any kind of agricultural area. And I support that, because I think that that's where we really need to keep the focus and, you know, contiguous to municipalities rather than random development, and really embrace agriculture and where we're at. Make it easier. I mean, it's evolving, and I don't think it needs to discontinue. I think it needs to maybe evolve into, with how times have changed and people view it.
I don't see any other questions.
No,
Go ahead, Carolyn.
And I know we've asked this of every candidate, and so we've got the information in front of us, but I thought one of the things I would ask is just what do you see as, I mean, you've got down here what the top challenges are, but maybe as you thought about it some more, has anything changed in this regard, or is, when you look at this moving into the future, I mean, the idea about agriculture being very critical, because we are at risk of losing the farmland. But what do you see as one, maybe the first top two, maybe even challenges that might be part of every decision that we have to make going forward?
And I think it's really that in a comp plan, I think one of the hardest things is that predicting of where we're going to be. I mean, we don't really know. If you would have said 3 years ago where we are today, nobody would have predicted where we are today, you know, in the way of, you know, having a major pandemic and how that affected everyone in society, and every business, every industry. I mean, it's really had that impact. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is really seeing what's going to even exist over the next 20 some years, and then how are we going to integrate that into our county. And an example of that is not only you know, industry, but infrastructure. You know, talking about solar and electric vehicles, and how is that all going to affect the future of McHenry County?
Okay. Well, Carolyn, thank you for coming in. We've
Well, you have great people.
Several great people, so-
Yeah, I was looking at that list, and holy cow, I did not expect all these people. But you know, I'm glad to see.
There's only one opening.
I know. But I'm glad to see at least you know, people are still engaged.
Well, things have changed, though. We're getting all the interviews to the committee now.
Oh, I know. Well, that was, you know, and I have to say, I kind of
It's a little
created, you
different than
know,
the way it
some of
was
that
before.
too. So be careful what you wish for, right? But thank you. Good to see everybody.
Good to see
You too.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Good.
I'm good.
I just was confirming something. Obviously, Donna's here, the chair of the Regional Planning Commission. And just give me 1 minute, Scott, please. So the Planning Commission can have up to 11 members. So if we would want to, we could choose 3 members or 3 people to recommend to move forward to the chairman, if that was the committee's feelings. We have the chairman of the Regional Planning Commission here who would be glad to have the extra opinions on the board. So, and we have obviously very good candidates here. So with that in mind, I think we should be listening to all the candidates very closely with the idea that we would narrow this down to 3 people to recommend to move forward instead of just the 1. Okay? That's all I wanted to say about that. Scott, is Kathy here?
Kathy is not, but Elly is.
Well, then let's talk to Elly.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for the application.
Of course.
If you would like to just introduce yourself and tell the committee a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
and then we'll see if we get any questions for you.
Sounds great.
Okay, go ahead and get started.
My name is Elly Flemming. I have lived in McHenry County for my entire life. I am currently working with Blue Stem Ecological Services out in Marengo. We do a lot of green infrastructure and prairie restoration work. I live in Woodstock, but I just moved from Crystal Lake 2 months ago, and I live in Crystal Lake the rest of the time.
Okay, when you, I missed the part about in Marengo Environmental you were working with?
Yes, so I work with Blue Stem Ecological Services. We're based out of Marengo.
Okay.
And I've worked there for almost a year now. And we do prairie restoration, ecological restorations, native area landscaping, contracting, stuff like that.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Elly? Go ahead, Jim.
So, why do you want this position?
I feel like it's really important to get young people involved in the planning, especially now that we're working on 2050. Especially for where I lived in Woodstock, I feel like I'm kind of standing out as one of the young people, and I've been to a couple of the meetings where we drew on maps and stuff, which was really exciting, but I was the youngest in the room by far. And I think everybody's opinion needs to be heard, and it's really important because McHenry County is majority, older generations than I at least, but I think everybody needs to be involved, especially for planning for future generations. So that's really why I'm excited and want to be involved in that decision making.
So, just my thoughts on it. I've been talking to the chairman of the Regional Planning Commission a little bit this morning, and the whole thing got off to a little bit of a slow start. So she's hoping to speed this up, get a little catch up in this thing matter, and there'd be meetings possibly every other month, every month, monthly.
Okay.
Do you see that as an issue?
No. Are they after working hours usually?
It's been evenings, hasn't it?
6 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. That's not a problem.
And
Okay.
not all the meetings will go 2 hours, and some of them might go longer depending on what we're
Okay.
doing on that day.
Are they always here, or are they spread around McHenry County?
Here, as far as I know,
Oh.
we
Yes,
haven't
yes.
talked about any place.
Okay, I mean, I live 7 minutes away from here, so it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, well, I just wanted to know that there's a little more time commitment
Yes.
than was originally
Yes.
described.
I understand.
Yeah, okay,
Mhm.
okay, then it's not a problem. So, Jim, did you have another question you want to finish up?
Yeah, and a little bit of your philosophy I'm looking for is on some of your solutions to the natural solutions to the stormwater management that you spoke about in this. I'd like to ask you about your feelings and opinion on that.
Sure. So for my capstone project, I did stormwater management at Drake University. We installed a bioswale. My big thing is environmental education and also combining green solutions with development that's already going to take place. Like, development is inevitable. I really like using structures that we already have and giving them a little TLC, but I understand that development's going to happen. So stormwater management is so special in McHenry County, especially because of our groundwater, and I was reading all about the Water Resources Action Plan. Scott Kuykendall is someone that I've met with multiple times, and
I just have this big emphasis on stormwater management as well. So one of my things that I mentioned is always having green spaces if we're doing new development. That concrete is going to cause so much runoff, unless we're doing permeable pavement, which can be very costly. But we need to offset that with green spaces. So prairies is what I do. Native plants, I have them tattooed all over me as well. But native plants are what I live for. Illinois native plants are so great in solving these stormwater issues. We don't need to spend tons of money on infrastructure if we have plants that are going to do the work for us. So if we can install green spaces that'll, one, provide environmental education, and also provide the opportunity for water quality and filtration, and also runoff management, I mean, I just see it as a win-win. I mean, these prairie grasses have 10-foot roots, and what we need is that filtration right now. And plus, one of the things McHenry County people seem to really value is their green spaces. So if we can combine that with development and population growth, then I think we'd have a much better balance on managing that stormwater. And it's just something that's really important to me.
Good. Carolyn, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, I know everyone's been answering this in their resumes and in the application. And I do see you around, you're very
Yes,
active.
yes.
And you'd like to get out there and learn about different things.
Yes.
I know that you're very active in that regard. In addition just to having that, you know, younger generation input into the process, what do you see as one of the bigger challenges that we face as a county?
I think one of the bigger challenges is making sure everybody's voice is accounted for the future. Because as I said, the 2050 plan is counting for generations of mine and past mine. And I feel like historically, when I've been involved in a lot of community events, there are a lot of voices that are underrepresented. I'm really passionate about speaking for the Hispanic community and minority community. My fiance's whole family is from Mexico, and he's just taught me so much about living in the area and how they want to be involved, they want to have a voice, but you don't always see them at, you know, meetings or even in the educational events. So one thing that's really important to me, I guess more personally, is getting everybody's voice represented. Agriculture is huge and important here, and at one of the last meetings I was at where we drew on the maps, which I really love that exhibit, someone was saying, we don't want Marengo to look like Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake has its purpose, and it's really important, but we don't want Marengo to change. That's what's great about McHenry County. And so I'm worried if there's not enough voices from Marengo or, you know, that sector, it's going to change the development. And, you know, that plan of 2050 needs to account for everybody in McHenry County. So that's something I'm just really passionate about, making sure everybody gets heard.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just a kind of a quick question. You know, with the growth that's inevitable in the county in the next 20, 30 years, how would you see a blend of both the growth, seeing the land sustained as, you know, open space, and paying for it if we didn't develop it too much? How would you see that?
Like the agricultural
How would you see the
areas?
balance? Well, I mean, the demand on our services is quite that, you know, would our taxes go up, or would we, you know, foster development for the business, from the business community, or would we just?
I think if we're talking about green spaces,
Look at it from a business point of view.
Oh.
How would you see the county from a business point of view?
I think it would save us money if we paired development with having green sections in the first place, as opposed to managing the stormwater runoff and excess and flooding and drought after the fact. So green spaces aren't expensive to install. I'm an estimator at my job as well, and if you plan for them ahead of time, they don't have to be very big to offset the area that you're developing on. I know development is inevitable, and it's important for population growth and to make sure everybody is accounted for. But if we plan in that balance to have those green spaces that are small, they can be interspersed. As I said, great opportunities for education. One of my favorite things, I guess I could say, is pollinator pockets. So if we're going to develop, you're going to need money for that stormwater management anyway. You're either going to need to direct it somewhere. It has to go somewhere. It shouldn't just stay in place. Well, it should stay in place, but it should stay. I know, I want it to stay in place. I actually don't want it everywhere else. But you're going to need to account for that money anyway. So why not have something like those buzzwords right now, like pollinator pockets, installed with development as well? It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be corners of parking lots, like parking lot islands. It could be as part of like the center of like a little bioswale on the island. We have detention basins everywhere. Just using the space that we have to manage our stormwater And, you know, native plants are not that expensive to, you know, buy and maintain, especially if you have someone who's knowledgeable in the community. They're really, really a cost-saving factor in the long run because they'll do the work for you. You just have to put them in, which is, you know, that initial cost, but then they'll do the work in the long run. And then second, I guess, with agriculture too, saving those spaces, I'm really passionate about growing food for people. Local food is something McHenry County is really awesome about, and I want to continue growing food to stay in McHenry County and the food for the people in McHenry County, not just, you know, shipping it off or livestock. And I know we're already really good at that, but that's another way to cost save is like direct that money back into where we already have it. I mean, people love the farmers market in Woodstock and Crystal Lake. We have a demand for that and we can capitalize on it for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Joe, go ahead.
Okay, so Springfield just passed a law about 2 weeks ago, we signed, that says the county no longer controls where zoning goes for solar farms or wind farms. The result's going to be that every one of those farms is going to be a solar panel jumbo. So how do we plan for this?
So to be honest, solar power is not a solution that I think is fit for everybody in every situation. I'm very passionate about finding green energy. Green environmental actions are, you know, a great step in the right direction. Solar panels, though, I think we really, really need to dig into the research as if that's going to benefit everybody. Are you saying that everyone's just going to do it anyway, that we have no...
We don't have the authority anymore to even regulate it. I mean,
Interesting.
our zoning ordinance has just been basically wiped out. It says, the statute as it right now reads says, if it is zoned agricultural or industrial,
It can be.
the only thing you can do is decide setbacks that comply with the state standards.
Mhm.
Everything else is approved automatically. So when we're starting to plan this, and I've seen farm leases for $3,000 an acre.
Mhm.
No farmer that I know is going to continue to raise crops if he can get $3,000 an acre for doing nothing.
For the solar panel
The
installation?
solar panel installation. I mean, they're not going to, and you have a virtually unlimited demand in Chicago for the solar. I think it's just a question of when we just have solar fields out here and nothing
Have we
else.
talked to all the farmers? You know, is everybody on that page that they want to give up?
Well,
providing the
so
food?
a year ago,
Mhm.
when the Duke Energy came through with 5 square miles of solar panels,
Sure.
I, for one, when I first heard about it coming, I mentioned it to the board that basically sit and wait to see what happens.
Right.
I did not get one single phone call in a year's time of that going through proposal. And it's 5 square miles of solar panels out by Marengo. They haven't started building yet, but they're going to. And so.
But phone calls are different than hearing them face to face. I mean,
No, but when somebody, this board I'm sure is all familiar with it.
Sure.
When somebody's got a zoning petition they don't like, we hear about it pretty regularly. To have something that went on and covers 5 square miles in the county and not get a phone call opposed to it, just shocking. I mean, I really expect to hear it. So, when you say you want to see Marengo change, it's already changed. It's going to have 5 square miles of solar panels on it. And that's
and is
not,
the solar energy going to Chicago or is it
it's
going
going
here?
wherever anybody buys it. It's going to go into the grid and it'll go to wherever anybody wants to buy it. And what's going to happen, that's what's coming. So when I look at the comprehensive plan, I'm trying to say, what do we do when that happens? I'm not, I'm not opposed to having green spaces.
Mhm.
I'm just opposed to the fact that a week ago, we just lost the ability to regulate it at all.
And that's
Well,
okay that you didn't know that? We didn't know that.
Well, and as I said, this
Yeah, 10 days ago.
I was
It just
very
slipped
new.
through the change and the
Wow.
change.
Well, and as you probably noticed, solar power and solar panels are not something I know extensive knowledge
Well,
of right
and
now.
I don't expect you to.
What?
I'm saying, it's not just about some green space. It's, how do we preserve the farm industry at all? 'Cause
That's
it may
true.
not be-
Well, but one of it, growing food for people, I mean, we're still going to need to eat, and people, so many people come to the Woodstock Farmers
Yeah.
Market in Crystal Lake.
But if you get
And-
$3,000 an acre for your piece of property, you can't, you're not growing any crops that is gonna generate $3,000 an acre net profit. They don't exist.
Sure, but I guess we'd have to have a conversation with a lot of the population and see if they're all going to make that decision based off of financial need or based off of what they know. I mean, people are passionate about a lot of things.
Sorry to be an old capitalist.
No.
People decide things on their financial needs.
I understand, and business is a huge part of what I do as well. I mean, as I said, I'm in sales at my job and I work in restoration. I understand sometimes it is what it is, but I like to gather all information before just deciding what the outcome is. You know, I want to hear firsthand what people have to say, and then, yeah, we'll have to go from there and plan ahead.
You know, again, we often lose, and it's not, you know, and it's right. I don't think most people realize it just happened, or most of this board didn't realize it.
I didn't realize it just happened.
But we knew wind farms were coming, we didn't know solar was coming. So solar and wind farms are no longer within our jurisdiction other than setbacks. We get to say how far you can be off the road and how far away you can be from your neighbors, as long as we don't say it's larger than what they said already. So it'll dramatically change things. It's no longer a conditional use case. We have, under the statute, we have 45 days to change our ordinance.
But, you know, when, in those hearings, I mean, maybe they weren't reaching out to county board members directly, but they had a lot of opposition at that time, during those hearings, and what group energy in the room. And those went on for 2-3 hours, those hearings. So, I mean, so there are people who are passionate about not converting the farmland to solar farms. There's even an argument about, can you call them solar farms? They don't really grow anything, so.
That's true.
But, so, anyway, we'll have to look.
Yeah, we don't get to do it anymore. It won't come to us.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate your application.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a good list of qualified people this morning that we have to whittle down, so
Yes.
don't feel bad if it doesn't happen.
I'm sure it's a busy morning. Well, thank you guys so much for your time,
Okay,
and I wish
thank
you the
you.
best of luck.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up, Elly.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, there's, is Kathy here?
Kathy is not. We do have Michael von Bergen for the Hebron Drainage District, if you'd like to interview him.
Sure. What do you think, Mr. Von Bergen? Would you like to step forward?
Whatever you want to do, you know. See, you're such a tight schedule here, so.
No, that's all right.
So you want me to sit down?
No, you can do whatever you're comfortable with. Just introduce yourself. And
That's the microphone.
That one there?
Right there on the table.
Okay.
please introduce yourself.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about the Hebron Drainage District and your background with it.
Okay, I'm Mike von Bergen, lifelong resident of Hebron Township for 53 years now. So I have been appointed by the county board before for this position. I've been doing it for the last, this is my third term now, I believe, would be going into. Have been involved in it 25 years plus because I live there and we have to use the drainage district, so very familiar with it. My dad is also commissioner and Chris Dom is also the other commissioner. So a little background, if you don't know our drainage district a little bit, it's up in Hebron Township and encompasses about 6,800 acres, and of that we tax $3.50 an acre to get our revenues for basically doing repairs. So that accounts to about just under $24,000. So most of our jobs when we do a repair are in that $5,000 to $10,000 range. So our $23,000 doesn't really go very far to work. And we are doing a lot of repairs now and a lot of replacement. This district was started in 1911 and now we're over 100 years and that's how old these tiles are. So we're doing a lot of replacement right now in bigger sections. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and shoot it out, but you were, I think you were alluding to House Bill 4412 here at last, and that was a big topic at our Drainage District annual meeting here at the beginning of last month. And we had 5 representatives from our county down there, a couple here from the county itself, in the stormwater, Joanna Claudia was down there, and a few other farmers that in that area you were alluding to down there about the solar farms. So that is a major impact for us, that House Bill of the drainage districts, and that, you know, if something was to happen with one of these coming in our district and it cut half of our district off in half, you're talking just revenue loss. If something was to happen and they didn't replace that, you know, they did it in their own time, they put up their solar field and, oh, we'll get done, we'll fix that main tile. well, you're talking about, you know, thousands of dollars an acre in lost revenue, and that kind of trickles down to everybody, whether it be the landowner, the absentee landowner, and the fertilizer dealer, and, you know, all your suppliers maybe not getting paid because of something like this happens. They just aren't gonna be responsible for something like that. So that's kind of how our district is and what we're doing, but we are a member of the Illinois Association, and they are trying to lobby and get it. We're supposed to submit a bill last Friday for an amendment onto this, because this was on this telehealth trainers bill, and it had nothing to do with drainage and solar and stuff. So it was just kind of something that happened in the middle of the night, so unfortunate. But that's kind of where we're at. You know, the drainage district is very important to us farmers up in that area. We have to be tiled, it has to work. I don't get paid to do this job. My payment is having the system work and be maintained, and we're able to continue our livelihood of farming by having this done. So it's a thankless job, and when there's something to do, I'm the guy in the hole digging and right there with our contractor fixing the tile. So I'm very vested in this. So I don't want to see it go away.
Okay, go ahead, Carolyn.
What was the meeting that you guys went to?
It's the Illinois Drainage District Association, and I will pass around this is kind of a pamphlet. You guys probably don't know what we really have to do, but you're welcome to have those. And this is some of the governmental responsibilities we have. The most important thing is being boots on the ground and fixing the tile is what we do. Have to adhere to a few things there. And it's pretty simple. A lot of things at the county level are done. I used to deal with Glenda Miller all the time, going through our property list. That was the last thing that we just had to do. So the county will send out a list of our tax properties, and I'll have to look through this and make sure it's all okay. It doesn't change, and it hasn't changed in the last some years, but I have to sign that and submit that back to the county that these are the parcels and this is the tax numbers, and all that jives with what the property benefit is and how much they get taxed. So that's kind of one of the most important things, and then just filing our economic statements and looking over our budget. So the county holds our checkbook here too. So we don't write any checks. We submit a voucher by the 3 commissioners signed, and then the county writes the check out and sends it to that member. So we don't have to touch any money.
And you said it was $3.60 an acre, did I get that right?
$3.60, or $3.50
50.
an acre, and it's about 6,800 acres, just under $24,000. So that we have to levy for every year, and we do that because of the maintenance fee on that. And we would like to increase that again because of the cost of doing the repairs of labor and stuff for our contractor coming in and the cost of tile.
Okay, Jamie, you have a question or comment?
So this new solar farm, when they don't have to participate in your drainage district anymore?
Not anymore. Where we did, we had a solar farm that was going to come in, actually it was on a piece right next to our home farm, part that we run, joins our farm, and the landowner wanted to put one in. And we made a lot of concessions to them. We came down here to the hearings, and the tile, our district tile ran through the property. We were going to make them replace it before they put in the solar farm. They agreed to that. So that was great, because in a 30-year time span, and with the tile being as old as it is, they're better off to replace it before they put it all in, because when you're talking about putting a 30-inch tile in, that's a lot of dirt you gotta move, and they're not gonna leave enough room to do that. So they did work with us that, but now under this new bill, they don't have to do it in there, so.
Not up front, do we have to, and it's the back end, right, and that's where you have that loss potentially between the time that it gets broken and the time
Correct.
that they're
Yeah,
required.
I mean, you could have a year, and you're out,
Yeah.
a whole year's income, and if it's a large area, say it's 3,400 acres out of the 6,800 acres, you're talking $5 million, and there's not a lot of mom and pops that could take that.
Because with Duke, they actually mapped out the whole thing. I mean, they seemed like they had that all figured out ahead of time, so they're not gonna have to even do that.
Yeah,
Do you know?
all you gotta worry about is the septic system now, so, and you would hope that they would be responsive to your needs and stuff, but that's, normally doesn't happen like that. You're at their whim, you know, to say, well, we could fix it, but, you know, maybe they're not gonna fix it right either.
So, on shifting gears, I know you've already got the resources to fix and repair things. Do you have any streams or waterways in your district?
We do have a Army Corps ditch that was installed at Corps, and that connects up to the Nipper Sink.
And do you guys have to maintain that?
We maintain it, which isn't much because we don't have a lot of resources. So we own our district owns a chainsaw, and I'm the operator. So, you know, and that's,
Hey,
you
you're
know.
not supposed to say that's allowed.
But, you know, you have to cut down the trees that fall in the water, you know,
Exactly.
and then it just blocks it all up, so. But yeah, we are not able to really do a lot. We have service come in every year and cut with a mower the banks what we can cut, but we can't cut both sides because there's so many trees on it. But we do keep it open, and that's the main thing. And then I know there's a problem with beavers in the county, in the conservation district. We've had beaver issues, and we hire somebody to trap them out and get them out of there. But we had 2 years ago we had 8 dams in that thing.
What's it cost you to have someone come in and trap beaver? I know that's quite expensive.
We got Tom Holden does it. He's over here on Charles Road. He was charging $50, and I think he went to $100. So it's not, and then I got to haul him around
You're getting a
too.
deal.
He's an older gentleman, and I have to take him out to the site on my Gator or 4-wheeler because he doesn't have one, and help him set the traps.
So does he actually have to get it to get paid, or does it?
Yeah, I see the results and, yeah.
Gotta bring back the tail.
And there's no value to the beavers anymore.
Not anymore, no.
Or they're just, unfortunately, they're a nuisance and they can cause, you know, tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage overnight, you know, for how fast they build their dams back up, so.
Yeah.
It's sad, they're the best engineer out there in nature for building dams. They can do it pretty fast, but they do cause a lot of getting back to the monetary thing. It's unfortunate.
Okay. Anyone have anything else for Mike? Okay, Mike, thanks for coming in.
Okay,
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate you volunteering to be a part of this again.
all right, thank you.
Oh, there is one thing, I guess, just for full disclosure, Mike's wife is Tracy, who is on our
Yes.
board, so I thought that should be said out loud.
Yeah, my wife is Tracy.
I personally don't see it as any conflict for me, but I thought all the board members should know her. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I apologize for being late.
Well, you'll get a detention. Stay after. Okay, please note that Lou Ness is joining the meeting at 9:21 this morning. I'm looking for Scott. Not seeing Scott. Just take a minute here and wait for Scott to come back. 9:50, we're a little early, running ahead. We have a 9:30, now that I have my glasses on.
Sure.
Yeah, Scott?
We have George.
Okay, and Kathy didn't show you.
Kathy, then I'll show you.
Okay, yeah, if George would come in. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Lossmann, if you'd just please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd want to be on the Regional Planning Commission.
All right, this looks familiar. Been watching you guys' movies or videos. My name is George Lossmann. I'm a local 20-acre small horse alpaca farmer from just west of Woodstock here. Let's see. My parents moved here in 1960. I've been a long time resident. lived on the river for 30 years before we moved out here. I've had horses and alpacas probably for 30 years. And in the meantime, I owned a couple businesses back in the 70s. I had a little deli, and I had also a trout farm on 120. Used to run that for a while. I built fences back in the 80s, and then I got a job doing being an engineer downtown Chicago. Big office buildings that were built in the 20s. That was in 1985. I started down there, and then in the 90s, I got the chief engineer's job for a 300,000 square foot building in Evanston, which is a lot of similarities between what you guys do and what we did, you know, planning for build-outs, planning for the 5-year plan for what we were going to do. You know, our tenants are sort of like the landlords, you know, we had to take care of them and everything. So I did that for a building. I stayed until 1990 or 2005, and then I got in with the company Colliers, which is another management company, commercial property management company. They had over 300 buildings that we used to take care of. And then in 2020, I retired with COVID. They put me on furlough, and then I just decided to retire. Now I've done all my honey-do list, and I'm looking for something else to do. I think I can help you guys, the committee, as far as I've been here for, I've always been interested in what's happening in the county and how it's developed. I'd like to be a part of that if I could.
Okay, well, we appreciate that you applied and come in to interview this morning. Do any of the members have questions for Mr. Lossmann?
We should introduce ourselves to him, because I think some of the others may have known us, but I don't.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm Joe Godmauer, I'm District 4.
But District 4 is sort of Crystal Lake. Good. See, otherwise people don't know the districts now for sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Carolyn Campbell, District 3, which is Crystal Lake, Lakewood, Lincoln Hills.
Okay.
Dan?
Hi, I'm John Reiner from District 2, or the southeast part of the county.
All right.
And I'm Chairman Larry Smith, and I'm in District 8. The new district now makes a big L. Richmond, Hebron, Harvard, top part of Marengo.
Okay.
Carl Kaminsky, District 6, which takes northern part of McHenry, Johnsburg, Ringwood, Spring Grove up to the state line, neighboring Mr. Smith's district.
I'm Lou Ness, District 7, and I'm largely Woodstock, Greenwood, and Wonder Lake.
Okay.
Jim Kearns, District 9, I'm from Huntley, and that encompasses Riley Township, Coral Township, and about 2/3 of Grafton Township.
You got part of Algonquin too, right?
I'm out there in town. It's probably
That's me.
you.
Oh, you are?
At that point,
Okay,
that's
all
my.
right. All right.
I stopped before Square Rock Road.
So how did you hear about the opening on the Regional Planning Commission?
I was looking at the Woodstock Independent, and I saw that they had opening in there, and I just thought it'd be something I'd like to do.
Have you been involved in any other type of commission, some type of government entity kind of thing?
Well, I was on an oversight committee once for my kids when we were in for school, when they were doing the ADA. My sons were in a wheelchair, so it was like we were working on different handicap accessibilities throughout the McHenry district.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions for Mr.?
Just-
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where do you see the 2050 plan going? What would you like to see in this county?
Well, there's a couple things. I'd like to see the economic corridor, the 23 and 90 be expanded. I think we need a lot more industrial, commercial entities in the county to help, you know, with the tax burden. Also, I don't know what his name was, but he's in one of the meetings and he was talking about the solar panel situation going on. And I know I've been approached, there's a company out there buying up leases of farmland that's looking to turn them into solar panel farms. I don't know if you guys, I think it's something that's coming up, it's gonna be a big deal to deal with at some point. But it might be actually pretty good to use a farm to supplement the power for that economic zone, you know, for the 90 corridor, whatever. Because I think they have to have a specific place for that power that they generate go to. You know, they've got to have some entity for that. ComEd just doesn't want to just take the power, I guess. They want to have somewhere to put it. So I know it all gets mixed up, but it's just, that's the way I understand it. But there's I know a couple, my neighbor's been approached, I've been approached for getting, leasing out your land for a certain amount until if they do get approval, then they give you another certain amount per acre.
So did they offer you big money the way Joe was saying?
It wasn't big money. It depends how many acres you had. It was a certain amount per acre. So, I mean, if you had a couple hundred acres, just to let them do their due diligence stuff, they pay you, I don't know what the contract was, but it was, $10, $12 an acre or something like that.
Yeah, but that's for due diligence. Once you start, it's not $10.
Yeah, no, I know, but it varies.
I'll take all the land you want to give me at $10 an acre.
Yeah, right, well, it's just, but that's what they're doing out there, so I don't know if you guys know it.
Carolyn, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, but I think you're kind of addressing it. What do you think the biggest challenges that we face as a county going forward as we plan out the next year?
Oh, for the next.
Yeah, well, as we go into this 2050 plan, what do you see as the biggest challenge in terms of planning for the future?
Well, keeping the people from moving out. I think there's a lot of with the increases of the homes, it's going to get probably worse than better. I don't know if a lot of families can afford to move out here. Even though it's going to go that way, I think if we have another big boom, it's getting closer and closer out this way. Algonquin and Lake in the Hills and all that area has boomed. I don't think it's ever stopped really, but and Huntley, that too. And it's just moving down the corridor. But I think it's just a matter of getting a lot of outskirt areas more involved than just the particular areas along the I-90 corridor. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have anything? Okay, very good. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Sure.
Thank you
Thanks.
for applying.
Okay.
Thanks, George.
Hey, Scott, Garrett?
We have John Collins here. Garrett is not here yet. I can send
Okay, yeah, let's talk to John. Would the committee like to introduce themselves to each one as they come in? Is that something we want to do?
I don't know that we need to do that for John, but
Well, I don't know. You guys know John, I guess.
I just figured we should do it. And I'm sorry I didn't catch it earlier when Elly came in.
Actually, we talked about it, Joe. We didn't think it was important for every candidate.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, all right.
Hey, John, how you doing?
John,
Could you sit there?
Good.
Yeah, so I could see you.
I think that, I think you know everybody here, right?
Pardon me?
You know everybody here, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. We know you. So, go ahead, I guess, for the record, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit why you want to be on this commission, please.
My name is John Collins. I live in Crystal Lake, and I'm interested in the commission because I'm very interested in the growth of McHenry County and all the different tug and pull that's going to take place within the county probably in the next 20 to 30 years. And I'd like to be part of that and hopefully give the county good direction in that matter.
Okay. I guess I forgot to mention it to the last applicant, but the commission has got a little bit behind in their timeline, so they're anticipating that meetings will be more on a monthly basis than they have been. Is that an issue for you? They're in the evenings?
No,
Not a problem, okay.
no, not anytime. I own my own business, so I can, deal with my schedule as I see fit.
Okay, good, good. Anyone else have questions for Mr. Collins?
I've never heard of the guy before, I don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, we know you. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, I guess I'll just ask the same question,
Sure.
just for consistency,
Sure.
and I know everyone had kind of answered it in their applications, but what do you see as the biggest, what are some of the challenges, the biggest challenges that we're facing as we go forward? Maybe the top two or something.
I think there's a few actually. I think one is going to be the tension between farming and urban growth. The county has traditionally been a farming community, and the population has been stagnant of late. But if the population begins to grow, that's going to become an issue. I think the second thing is, and we saw some of this past year, is solar farms or wind farms. I think that's going to become more and more of an issue as we move forward over the next 10 to 15 years. When you have a lot of open space and a lot of farmland available, that's an area that I think that people are going to be very interested in putting solar farms up, and potentially wind farms, and the impact that's going to have on the community as well. So those are two things I think that are going to be a challenge for the community going forward.
Okay, go ahead, Lou.
John, how do you see the county, this commission negotiating with the things that you've talked about, right? The challenges that we're going to face. What does the county bring to the table with the municipalities? What actually do you see the commission's role in that?
Well, knowing we can't tell the municipalities what to do, I think the idea is to set a series of guidelines and a vision for what the county can look for or look to be over the next 20 to 30 years. And then by bringing them in as stakeholders in that process and communicating with them on a regular basis, we get buy-in on that. There's going to be no perfect answer, but I think that if you can explain to people what you want to do and why you want to do it, and not only what the ramifications of that are, but what the benefits are of that, you can bring people to the table and hopefully come to some type of answers that everybody can live with. Because certainly it's going to be impossible to find solutions for everybody. It means every single.
Really, John?
Yeah. Really.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I don't see anything else. I think we all sort of know you from your past board experience, so appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
You too. Enjoy.
Move right on.
Okay, we have a couple more. See what Scott has to say here. What's up, Scott?
We have no other candidates waiting.
Okay.
Maybe a few moments. I don't know if you wanted to.
I'd move to approve, to take things out of order and just take Michael von Bergen as the drainage district.
Okay, that would be 511, the Deliberation and Selection Hebron Drainage District. We have a motion and a second for Michael von Bergen to be recommended for that position. Is there any discussion regarding that?
Thankfully, he wants to still do it.
He wants to, yes, he wants to do it. He knows that property, that land out there all his life, so he's actually, it's very good that he is coming forward to do that.
How many people are currently on the?
There's
There's
three.
yeah.
Three, so.
Yeah, and if there's any conflict, I guess it would be that his father is one of the other three, but also Chris Dom, who is a farmer in the area. Chris Dom's a big part of the Farm Bureau. I've known Chris forever, so good people.
So three are already on there?
That's it.
No, that would be three on there.
Yeah, that's all
Oh,
that's
that's
on
right,
there,
Chris
yeah.
Tom and his father, his father.
Yeah, right.
Okay, got it.
Any other discussion? We'll go to a vote. John?
Yes.
Carolyn Campbell?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So Mike will be recommended. Scott, anything?
Nobody here yet.
Okay. So we are a little ahead of schedule. Let's take a 10-minute break. Garrett Anderson is scheduled for 9:40. It's 9:37. So Dan? We're good? Okay. Okay, we're back to the Planning, Environment, and Development Committee meeting of February 7th, back in order. Following up with our interviews, Mr. Garrett Anderson, who works for the city of Woodstock, and I've crossed paths with several times on the Harvard Woodstock Enterprise Zone Commission with him. Does everybody else know? Go ahead, Carolyn, you want to introduce yourself, or Joe?
Sure. Joe Gadameyer. I'm in the district that covers the south edge of Woodstock all the way to here.
Carolyn Campbell, District 3, I cover part of Crystal Lake, most of Lakewood, most of Lakewood Hills, and a good chunk of Elm.
John Reiner from District 2, and I'm Southeast County, Crystal Lake, a little bit.
Okay, Larry Smith, District 8 now, which is the Northwest Territories. Wait, Carl?
Carl Kaminsky, District 6. I take the northern part of McHenry at the county line, all the way up to the state line, which is Ringwood, Johnsburg, Spring Grove, and part of Richmond.
Good morning, Garrett. Lou Ness, District 7.
Jim Kearns, District 9, which is Huntley, Riley Township, Coral Township.
Okay, Garrett, if you would please introduce yourself, what your job is. I know you work for the city of Woodstock, and
Sure.
Why you'd want to be on the Planning Commission.
Sure. Well, I'm Garrett Anderson. I'm about a 7.5-year McHenry County resident. I live right in downtown Woodstock. I walk to work most days to Woodstock City Hall. Not this past week, though. It's been too cold. But so I'm in District 7. Lou is my rep. So one of my reps, I guess. I'm interested in serving. I have I'm nearly 20 years now into a public service career, and I've worked with a lot of commissions and a lot of boards like this, but never on the actual commissioner side. I've always been interested in serving, but most of the time I'm either a staff liaison or an ex officio or something, so I'm not in that position of just being one of the citizen representatives. And it's appealing to me to do that. At least, in this case, I found a opportunity that I believe would be one that would fit my skills well. I do a lot of planning. That's my background in education as well as what I do for work. So I think it would be a good fit for the skills. I was inspired the last couple of years by a couple of our City of Woodstock commissions that are filled by my own colleagues. So, the two I'm thinking of specifically are Cody Sheriff, who used to work here at the county, works for the city of McHenry now. He chairs our planning commission at the City Hall in Woodstock, because he's a Woodstock resident. And then Donovan Day, who works for the city of Fox Lake. He's the chair of our Historic Preservation Commission. So, I figure if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. I should be volunteering as well in the same way. So, I'm interested and would be happy to serve if you feel like that would be a good fit for you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for applying. The commission has gotten off to a little slow start, I guess. We're sort of changing up, new chairman, et cetera. And the anticipation is that the meetings would be every month now in the evenings. Is that something? I know you're a busy guy. I didn't know if you realize that or not. Or
monthly is fine. Most of my other meetings happen on monthly schedules as well. It would just kind of depend on whether I had another conflicting meeting. Like Tuesday nights, for example, first and third Tuesdays are city council for Woodstock, so that would be a difficult one for me to meet because I have to be at my other job. But
okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Garrett? Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so I'm just for consistency.
Sure.
So I know that in the applications, people were asked, what do you think are the challenges? But between the time you filled this out and thinking further about the challenges and the planning commission itself, what do you see are the top maybe 2 challenges that we face in the county that will influence how we proceed as a commission?
as far as the long-term.
Yeah, like what do you
county?
see are the big challenges here in the county that are going to impact the process or what we do or what we end up looking at?
Well, I'm always a glass half full guy, so I always think of challenges as opportunities myself. So, the one that I keep coming back to is the fact that we have approximately 70% of our county population that leaves the county every day for work. I think that's a challenge in one sense because it may help contribute to people feeling disconnected with the county because that's not where they spend their working day. But it's also a tremendous opportunity to try to drive some of those local employees back to jobs and promote job growth in the county. They can easily be filled by people that already work here. I mean, they live here. We don't have to convince people to move here as much as just bring the jobs for people that already live here. So it's definitely a disconnect, I think, when people leave every day for work. You know, I've always tried to live in the community that I work in, but that's not always an option for everyone. So I think that's a challenge. That's one, I would say. A second one, I don't remember what I said on the sheet when they asked. But
Oh, well, not duplicating efforts, but.
yeah, you know, whenever you're in a quasi-suburban area, there's a lot of local services that are duplicated. And anything we can do to help collaborate between communities to reduce that duplication, I think, is an opportunity that the county, as the kind of the overarching government body, can help fill. So specifically for the county's plan, as much of that type of promoting collaboration, I think should be part of the plan for the future. So, thank you.
Woodstock is on the precipice of tremendous growth.
Yes.
And as a microcosm of the macro, there are significant challenges within the city about should we grow, shouldn't we grow. I remember the whole deal about the roundabout. You know, people were going to leave Woodstock because of the roundabout.
Mm-hmm.
Now people kind of like the roundabout. It's working very well.
I liked the headline on the Woodstock Independent. It said people are coming around
Yes,
to the
they are.
roundabout.
So what has the experience been like for you in Woodstock, navigating these layers of challenges that we've had in this tremendous growth that we're looking at, that you think you would bring to the commission?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think the appeal, a lot of the appeal of McHenry County is the fact that we're not too crowded, right? We did a whole rebranding thing recently with the Convention and Visitors Bureau to naturally McHenry County. That kind of underlies that exact point, you know, that we have open spaces, we have natural offerings. So any really high growth plan that would eliminate that kind of that opportunity that we have to maintain that appeal, I think would be misguided. So I think guided growth that is focusing on a lot on infill is what we've been trying to do in Woodstock, is focus on bringing more population to town, but into the downtown, you know, reinforcing the core urban environment that we have without having a lot of extra urban sprawl. That has been an important part of our plan in Woodstock, at least. And that doesn't, there's never universal support for any of these ideas. So some people like it, some people don't. But you know, that kind of smart management of using the infrastructure better and reinforcing higher population for our businesses downtown has really been the core of what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have anything?
Yeah, just.
Go ahead, John.
How do you see the county in 2050 with the balance between ag, urban, and industrial? Do you see zones, or what do you envision?
Yeah, so I would hope it'd be similar to what it is today, in the sense that we still have a lot of the ag and you know, rural tourism opportunities that we still have today. I would hate to see a lot of that go. However, continued growth and continued economic development is also important. So, you know, like I kind of mentioned to Lou's answer, I think a lot of it would be, in my opinion, the priority should be on infill. It's less of a stress for the city infrastructure in the various communities, because we're putting more development, more population into the existing infrastructure rather than continuing to spread it out. And you're also being able to preserve those open spaces and agricultural opportunities that in many ways make the county what it is. So it's a balance, of course. You need to, you know, keep that identity as a natural area, as an ag area, but also reinforce other identities that we have as a strong manufacturing county and communities. So that's not much of an answer.
Strong either way.
Go ahead, Jim.
You know, and I haven't asked this, but for some reason it just came to my mind with you. And I don't know why. Because in the 2050 plan, of course, for growth and infrastructure and everything else with gravel pits and everything, where do you see that in the 2050 plan? Where would they be located in the county? Would we be expanding all of that?
Gravel pits are a necessary part of the development process. You know, it makes it that much more expensive to build anything if we have to truck that in from far away. So, you know, we're in the middle of pondering one in Woodstock that's not a very popular location. It's right on the east edge of town, McConnell Road and Rose Farm. No, Lily Pond. What we're talking about requiring is just a lot of buffering, a lot of distance from the existing homes, a slow growth plan of working into the area, digging into the area as slowly as possible to create a minimum disruption. The routing of where the trucks can go rather than going through, into town. They stay out onto the county roads, the rural area, so that the heavy truck traffic doesn't disrupt. So there's just ways to make those work where you're trying to create as little disruption as possible. But to say that they can't be allowed at all, I think is also short-sighted. I think it's difficult for development to occur without the materials that you need for that development.
So you think they should be brought into the municipalities, into their annexed in? Is that what you're saying? So
I'm not sure
so the
that
municipality controls that? Or?
There's certain areas that are best for gravel, and I'm not sure where exactly those are compared to where the municipal boundaries are. In our case, we're willing to take it on, but I don't think
what kind of buffering around the properties would we say throughout the county? What kind of buffering would be put, and how far back would it be from the roads and the homes?
I know the county's application for gravel pits is like 12 pages long. I think it's got a pretty good guideline already.
You follow that pretty much?
Our guidelines were much shorter, and they're only about 2 pages, and so we've been looking at the county's guidelines as a best practice. So we think that there's already a pretty good defined pattern of how to establish one through the county's process.
All right, thanks.
I think ours was way too short. way too easy for the city of Woodstock.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Garrett, thank you for coming in. Appreciate your application.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'd be happy to serve if you think you'd be a good fit, and pleasure to meet you all this morning.
Well, we have a couple spots to fill and several very good candidates, but
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more interview. Barry Moy, looks like he's here.
Get in here, tell him that.
Yeah.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Well, Ms.
Sit here?
Yep, that'd be great. We have a speaker or a microphone in front of you because we are being recorded today. So I'm Larry Smith from District 8, which is the northwest corner of the county. And I'd let Mr. Gademauer introduce himself.
Fantastic.
My district is now Route 14 between Cary and Woodstock.
Fantastic. Used to be my old one.
So I'm Carolyn Campbell, District 3. I cover a small section of Crystal Lake, Lakewood, most of Lincoln Hills, and a good chunk of
Hi, Barry.
Hey, John.
Just south of you. District 2.
Go ahead, Carol.
Carl Kaminsky, District 6, which is 120 in the county line up to the state, so Johnsburg, northern part of McHenry, Ringwood, Spring Grove. You used to have a restaurant.
I had a restaurant for 50 years in McHenry, and my son took it over.
I remember meeting
50
you
years.
about 30 some odd years ago.
All right.
Good morning. Lou Ness. I'm District 7, which is Woodstock, Wonder Lake, and Greenwood.
Lou, I remember you.
I don't want to say it's been a while, but it's been a while, Carrie. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm Jim Kearns, southwestern part of the county, District 9, Riley, Borough Township, and 2/3 of Grafton Township.
Thank you.
Okay.
And my name is Perry Moy, and I'm retired.
Okay, great. Just tell us a little bit about why you want to be a commission, maybe a little background, any experience that you'd have being on a commission or
Well,
planning.
First of all, I want to thank the county and all of you for giving me an opportunity to serve this wonderful area of ours again. I came into McHenry County in 1965. I'm a graduate of McHenry High School in 1969, and from that then, I've seen the county grow. I've seen the county expand. I've seen the people become a part of this great community of ours. And it kind of overlapped. And as city governments, local governments, and county governments try to work together to develop the future and the quality of life for all of us. And that's why I wanted to get involved again, because I see this happening another time. Right now, where the county is going, we've lost a little population, but that'll come back again. We're a home-based community that was built on property taxes, and now we have to reach out for another form of income to help us keep moving forward. And that's what I see. As a part of the Planning Commission, I understand the fact, because I've worked on this subdividing enterprise zones, roads, as all of you have done, and how can we best suit the constituents of this area? And how can we actually protect their investments? Every square inch of land in this area is owned by a property owner. And how can we partner with them and not regulate them to death? And how can we look down that road and have a future with them? And again, thank you. I've served on the county board. I've been a part of this community for over 50 years, and my retirement gives me an opportunity to concentrate on assisting and serving the people again one more time. So, thank you. Any questions for me?
Yep. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I've just been asking pretty much the same questions, Perry, but you answered them pretty well already. It's just that, how do you see the balance with ag, urban growth, and industrial in the county?
Yeah.
You know, for 250, what do you picture 2050?
Well, 2050, I see there's a couple of issues that we need to address. Number one, we've always tried to access through public transportation, Metro, and I served on the Metro board, and the tollways. How can we best suit those areas that are now exploding around the Huntley? Marengo is our next Huntley, and that needs to be considered. And how can we partner with the people of Marengo to develop jobs, affordable housing, and access to the road? We're right in the middle of Rockford and Chicago, so it puts us in an economic zone, so to say. And what I see is that we need to develop a future for the young people here and how they can create good paying jobs. And also, another large consistency of us is the seniors. How do we best suit them? I'm a part of that group now. And how do we assist them in developing opportunity, developing affordable housing, and medical? So that's what I see.
Thanks, Barry.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions?
Well, I love that comment in the middle between Chicago and Rockford. I don't think I quite heard it put so clearly before in terms of opportunity and growth. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of hold that in my space because it is a prime place to be in terms of managed, steady growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And John's question about retaining our root, the agricultural roots of the county, but also to your point of creating new opportunities for younger
The
people.
realistic part.
Well, it's
Right,
about.
I mean, there's romance and then there's a realistic part.
Well, it's a both and for me. We don't have to give up one to have the other.
Absolutely, it's a balance.
Yes.
And then we have, I was talking to one of the other county board members in the hall while I was waiting. She owns a farm, and McHenry County has a foundation of rapeseed. Rapeseed is canola oil. And I was the first restaurant, the Columbus Brothers came out of Des Plaines and developed an oil called canola oil, and I was one of the first to use it. We started with lard, and I moved from lard to canola oil, and I've used it ever since. And that's an industry that we need to kind of, it's a balance. That's the balance that I see right there.
Very, very good. Any other questions from the members? Seeing no questions, thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thank
Appreciate
you
your
for
time.
giving me an opportunity.
Yeah.
And great seeing all of you again.
Yeah, great to see you again, Barry.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the interviews. Look for a motion, 510, deliberation and selection of a regional planning commission.
Could we talk about all of them first? My first question is are we putting one up or are we putting three up?
Okay, let's see if we can get an answer from our staff, which I believe is going to be that we're going to change the rules of the commission to include up to 11 people, which would be, we'd be picking 3 of these, right?
Can we?
Can we?
And that, I mean, that's your decision. We kind of saw this great list of candidates and thought that might be an option to get some new energy and new ideas on there. Wanted to be deferential to the chairwoman. She saw some opportunity there as well. So if that's the pleasure, we can make it happen. We'll need to get a tweak in the bylaw, but it's clear you could be 9 or 11.
Joe, you got something else you want to?
Mary, are you okay with that?
Yes.
You're now going to be chair, so are you our chair?
I am
so
chair.
What do you
Yes,
want?
I've been
what do you
working
think
with
your
staff.
committee needs?
I've been working with staff, and the way things have been going, I think it would be better to have a little bit more diversity. We had talked about that before when we were doing the charrettes, the energy of young people. We have a lot of old people and a lot of people who don't show up to every meeting. So if we had more people, I would even say that it's a minimum of 9 and let it go with that. But I don't really want it to get out of hand that you've got 15 people sitting around all talking about what we've been trying to talk about. So 11 sounds really good right now. And it also gives us the opportunity that if somebody does want to fall off or can't make it to all the meetings, that we can take 1 or 2 out and we still have 9 because that's what the original number was. I'm not against that at all. We need all the information. I think we always talk about CMAP. We're always talking about environmentals and having diversity in the bylaws. That's what we want to get from. So the people that we already have, some of them are farmers, some of them are from the city. So having the expertise of people like Garrett or Elly or Carolyn is really good. That's not necessarily, you may have another idea, but those give us more places to go for information and subsidize what we already have, plus our ex officios who will help us out.
Okay, thank you.
I did float this idea by Chairman Bueller late yesterday afternoon. He was enthusiastic, but again deferring to our chair. So, Adam and Renee kind of get some credit, and Scott Hennings for kind of noodling this around at the end of last week, and so it's been percolating.
So, yeah, it's something that I think everybody that has a stake in this commission, the chairman, our staff, is all on board with the idea that we could move it to 11. And I see that as a benefit. We have the good candidates here, ready to go. They want to do this. We have staff and a person that wants to accept them in. So I think it's a good idea. Go ahead, Jim.
So do we need a motion to expand this from 1 to 3? If so, I would so move.
I'll second it. I don't know if we have
I don't know if
the
we need-
authority to do it with it not being on the agenda. That would be the
Exactly.
problem.
That was my concern.
I would say we could let it be brought up to the full board and they can put it on an agenda. I don't think you and I can make that motion.
It's
I mean,
not-
But we
I
can
support
still
the
select the
motion.
three to move
We can
forward?
put the three up and say, you know, if the board chooses to go forward, they can pick the three.
That was my only question.
My thought on it is we would still make the one recommendation, and we could make two backups that would be if and when the bylaws get changed.
And so we could change, we are exploring if we can change the bylaws as rapidly as your next meeting. We're going to talk with council. I think we may be able to do that. If not, it'll just be a two-step process, and we'll still be. Chair Donner has a kind of an organizational meeting set for the
23rd of February.
So if you go with three, all three can be encouraged to attend at that meeting. They're not going to be voting on anything that way
Correct.
anyway. That's the slower process, and then the bylaws get recommended for change at that meeting.
Do we need to decide this month?
But I think the board can just do it.
Well, we
Do we
only,
need to decide our recommendations this month if you're gonna have?
Yes,
No,
yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, we've got them, they're fresh in our mind.
Yeah,
I want to
They
make
could
those
go to that meeting.
The
recommendations.
interviews
so
are
we
here
have to go to
too.
that meeting.
It's time to make the decision on
Hey,
what we
just-
recommend.
just,
Yeah.
We will be kind of revisiting last year and some of the things that we have forgotten or things that we still have questions about that haven't been answered. We're also going to, Renee's going to make presentations on those. Then we're going to have Scott Hennings come and explain the process of the the next strategic plan for the highway department that's just been finished. We're already using that information, but so that everybody is aware of what the process is to get to where we need to go. And then I'm hoping in the next meetings, the next one after that will be March 23rd, and we'll get all the information from Halsey and Levine that we can read ahead of time so that those people will be able to do that and know hopefully what's going on. And then we can have presentations from, for instance, the health department, the economic development people, and we're going to even have Scott Kuykendall do a presentation on water and stormwater, so that the people who don't know what's going on up until now will be as up to date as we are.
So you want boots on the ground quickly?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, very good. So I need a little help from staff on the correct procedures. Obviously, we got the agenda that's been posted that says we're going to select one person today. What do we need to do to be procedurally correct to put those two other people in place that can fill in, step in, and not be in violation of any Open Meetings Act procedurally?
I think we get a little cover here, and you guys help me on this, but ultimately, you're making recommendations to the chairman. You're kind of the chairman's filter. The chairman will make the recommendations to the full board. So with that, if you want to make three recommendations, I think you can do so.
Okay? Okay. That sounds clear enough to me. Any other committee members have questions on that? Jim, go ahead.
Should we start with the one and then do the two alternates in case they don't get that job done?
I would say before we even do that as a board, I mean, I know in the past, when you've got this many candidates and this many choices.
Scott's dying to get this.
I would say everybody either pick one or two, and, you know, then we got an idea what motion will pass. And everybody will have got.
I think I agree with Joe on this, just a second, Carolyn. And then, but we will whittle it to that one out of those three.
Sure.
To take the spot that we have on this agenda, if that's procedurally correct. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah, I think you just got to it. I'm actually fine with putting forward three, because I really don't see why at this point why the chairman, or especially if what the commission is calling for is three people. But if that's what you're more comfortable with, I'm fine, but I would like to do what Joe's talking about and talk about all of them. And then even if we just get the three, and then if we have to, if you really want to prioritize them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay?
Keeping in mind, bylaws are diversity, asking for diversity, what was the other word?
Age?
But, well,
and
Oh,
experience?
no, I know what you're talking about.
but diversity covers it.
Equity.
Equity, diversity, different areas of the county, different,
Well, that's the DEI.
different populations represented. So, with that in mind, Jim, do you, if you were going to pick one,
Oh, wow.
I'll
Put
start.
me on the spot.
I
I tell you what, we have.
I could
we
move to
have-
the next person.
This is one of the strongest group of candidates that I've seen come forward.
Very, very good. Yes.
And very good. And my ranking of them, I'd have to rank, I really like what Perry Morey said. I liked his, so I would rank him as my number one. Man, it's hard to weed these out, but I tried to keep the list here to do this, but for bringing some spirit and spunk to it, the Elly Flemming, I think some of the other candidates might have been stronger than her, but yet she does represent a whole nother area that could bring something to it. So she would be my
I
number
don't mind me to
two.
cut you off, but two's fine, if that's okay, if I can do that. And everybody will have a chance to talk again. We'll just bounce this around two at a time for everybody for right now, until, if that's okay.
If that's what you're looking for, okay.
Yeah, I think we have to do that, just keep it moving along. Carolyn Campbell, do you have, and if they're the same, they're the same, that's fine.
No, I mean, I'm thinking, I was trying to come up with the three that I felt comfortable with, so I guess I would go ahead and be interested in somebody's third, because we're going to be picking three.
My
But,
third was Carolyn, just so you know.
Okay. So I actually had more than three marked.
Well, they're good
That-
candidates.
that's the
Right,
tough-
that's the tough part, so, you know, and so I want to be able to talk about all of them. My hesitancy about picking one or two is that sometimes the ones that are down here that you are still up at the top fall off, so I don't want anybody to
So
fall off.
we'll give you a chance to speak on
Yeah,
all
no,
of
I
them.
would-
Keep in mind the diversity and the equity of
Right.
part of the bylaws.
So, and this is not going to be in order of what I would prioritize at this point. I'm just going to hit a few things that we talked about. Yes, I think Elly is young, and she, and maybe doesn't, because of that, doesn't have quite the background that other people would have, but I do think that she brings that youth factor into it. She does talk about inclusion in terms of different populations in the county. And we are way underrepresented in a lot of our boards and commissions with the youth population. So it is, I think that's an important voice. So to me, that's something to be considered. Then, you know, I liked what Garrett had to say. A lot of what Garrett had to say. I know that he's been very involved with the economic development for Woodstock, but I do like some of the comments that he made, and talking about infill as a way to develop the core parts of our communities, taking the pressure off of our rural areas in that regard. Talking about getting people who actually live here to work here. We talked about affordable housing. We talked about a lot of things. So I think he has a lot to offer. I know that he has that role already in Woodstock, so I know that maybe he's already doing that for us in some respects. But so.
Okay.
So those are-
Let's get one of the new members. Lou, would you?
Anderson, Garrett Anderson, I think because I lived there and I've seen the challenges of negotiating that whole plan between urban and rural and historic preservation and urban, you know, that whole infill using what's there first. I think and I know that he's been a part of that, I think he's navigated that really well. And I think it could have been a lot more painful for the city and the residents than it has been. So that, I would say that. And I would say Flemming would be my other choice because of following up on what Carolyn said.
Okay. Now we'll go to the Mr. Godmother, please.
Okay. I would first start out saying that I don't think that there's anybody that interviewed today that I couldn't accept. I mean,
I think we all agree there, all great candidates, and all bring a different,
and they all bring a different perspective.
yes.
I like Perry. I like John Collins. and I like Elly. The reason I like John is that I think that he's got an idea of how the board works, this board works, and he also has a business background that I think that he could bring into the area. As far as Perry's concerned, same kind of thing. He brings that perspective. We don't have anybody, on the other hand, like Elly, even applying. So she's
Okay,
got her.
so, but you're cheating because you said 3 people.
I know. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Sorry, Joe, it was Moy, Collins, and was it Flemming for your
And
third?
Flemming.
Okay.
Oh, we could choose 3?
Pardon?
We could choose
We
3?
did put
could.
3, but I cheated. I didn't let him cut me off.
Oh, okay.
If Joe's doing 3 and we're doing 2, it's going to
I
change.
think
You won't know
as
when
we
you
go
have
through
to.
this process, you're going to see a
I would-
pattern of who
I
we
would-
I'd say
think
throw 3.
could or should
I
be
would
there,
say full three.
and we'll start narrowing this down, so.
Yes.
I ain't gonna get
Carl, you want to?
Not in any order, but just the 2 of them, Ms. Schofield and Mr. Perry. You know, Mr. Perry, I've known for a lot of years, the business in McHenry, here on the board. Ms. Schofield, same thing, always involved in the community. I'm good with both of them.
Yeah, okay. Dan?
What did you said Perry and what, and,
Carolyn and Perry White,
oh, so you just did 2?
that he feels.
I'm following his rules.
But we'll have time to work this through a little bit. John?
So my concern is, first off, we're going to all vote 3 or 2. We better decide. But-
We're going to vote 3, pick one for this position right now. So
Okay.
it's 3.
So.
I just tried to whittle it down to your
It's
top 2
okay,
choices.
It's okay, but not all of us are doing that, so.
I'm
Joe,
sorry.
Joe,
Take Collins off, and then I'm down to 2.
Okay, let's do it, let's be equitable here, because, and the thing that I'm a little bit concerned of is like, Elly Flemming is great, and I don't want to discourage the youth, but
Yes, Scott.
if we vote for 1 and you don't vote for 3, we've lost some experience. So I think that Perry kind of lines up.
What do you
with
mean?
this.
Go for
So
one and not 3?
if we recommend 1 and then an alternate of 3, but then you don't
We would,
expand your board, and I could see that Mrs. Flemming, she's may get all of our number 1s. We've lost experience, so I don't know that we're sending the wrong message to your board.
She doesn't expand the board. This board expands the board.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. So if our county board doesn't make it 12, and we've done 1, I'm a little concerned. Would we vote for Ms. Flemming as number 1, all of us, if we had number 1? Because we don't know that we're going to have 3. So
It's
that's
very,
a
very,
little bit of my
very
concern.
likely that we're going to have 3. As a group, as a committee, I think we have a strong consensus that this is a good idea. And we take that to our board meeting, it's got to pass. I mean,
Yeah.
it needs to pass, it needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's what's right for the commission. So I think we need to proceed with the idea that there will be 3
Well, I like
added.
moving forward from that bit of that conversation. I like Perry only because I like what he said, and as for like a lifelong, or somebody that's has all the equity here. Ms. Flemming, for her age and her enthusiasm, and I would hate to lose that. And she's coming here with her knowledge, and then we turn her away. Boy, I'd hate to like to welcome her on board.
Okay, so that's
not that it matters. Ms. Schofield, I love. Anderson is experienced, but leaning towards also George Lossmann, only because he's from that area and he kind of has been here since 1960. So although I know I won't go anywhere, but I like George Lossmann.
Well, pick 2 that put your name by, and then we'll start going
Okay,
from there.
there's my 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
which are?
Flemming and Moy.
Okay. So, and I don't care how the committee wants to proceed further in this. I will tell you that I think Carolyn, with her experience at CMAP and her previous experience at the 2030 plan, et cetera, would be my top pick.
And a good pick.
So that's what I would say. I just think there's too much experience from the county board and previous planning commissions. The enthusiasm, intelligence of Ms. Flemming also impressed me. I thought it was a great interview. I see a board consensus, a committee consensus here that Ms. Flemming would be part of the commission if our recommendation is accepted. Is there anyone that would disagree with that idea? So now,
Can we add in our third bill choice? Because
go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, because I would put down Collins as well, and partly, and I get the whole idea of having somebody who's been in the county for a long time, but sometimes that's where you want the new perspective, is somebody who hasn't necessarily, been here forever, or bringing a different perspective. And Collins is familiar with, with how the county works. He's a business, owner, entrepreneur. Understands the challenges with the solar and wind. So I don't know,
That's fine, we're here for a conversation.
So and since we have to select 3 anyway, I would rather they be up there and have that support showing right now, rather than kind of whittling away people because they're not up there.
Okay, so you would prefer that if anybody had another name that they would put their
Yeah, I'm kind of
third
curious
pick
as
up
to what everyone's going to
Okay.
anyway, just because if we're going to be looking at 3, I'd like to, what are your top 3?
there. Yeah, okay, we can do that. I have one question of the chairman of the commission. The municipality representation, do we have some or several?
We have somebody from Huntley that's historic.
That's for preservation.
No? Who is it?
No, the
nobody
real
exactly from
connection
the city.
to municipalities.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is something that we identified from the beginning, that we
Right.
want to get from this is to build that network of planners and ideas, and knowing that we can't compel municipalities to.
But we got to partner with them, so,
Yeah.
and
So
that's,
we've got
and that's where I
Collins.
was going, if we need the diversity on there, that, I'd also think that Garrett Anderson would bring that to the table.
Right.
So, now I've jumped in and put my third name out there, which but I'm chairman, I get to, so. Lou, go ahead, please.
Lou, can I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just reminded, Charlie Eldridge, who is very well-knowledged, but he's one of us old guys. He's from Richmond, so he would know that whole area in the northern part of the county.
But he's not necessarily works within the municipality.
That's a question, which commissioners are living in incorporated municipalities?
Right, that's
I think
it.
Charlie does.
Well, it's not living, but working. I mean, just the general experience of how the
With
municipalities are
municipal
going to
background, I see.
Okay.
Didn't you ask what the breakdown of the current commission is? Is that what you
Sir?
asked? How many were?
I think we'd probably have to ask staff to give us a little background on the current commissioners.
We have that list from, I think Renee provided, that showed.
The stars on there? Is that the one?
No, it's the one that talks about what the back, so we have land use. It just talked about what would be good to have, and then it talks about, we have one member of the RPC is an economic development professional, and then you've got, who's familiar with infrastructure. It talked about who was bringing what to the table. So that was that 2-page.
Well, if I could just add this to the conversation. Before the housing bubble burst, and I think if you look at it, Woodstock is tracking to be one of the largest cities in this county because it's not landlocked. And as Wonder Lake is targeted to be the 3rd largest city after all that development. So that whole area out there, they are going to be engaged in planning in a way that impacts everything else we do in the county. And so from that perspective, I think it would be good to have Woodstock at the table because they are forced in some ways to look beyond their municipal boundaries in this growth planning. It's going to be it's there. And I would rather, that, okay, they're not, you keep the people closer to you that are going to, in some ways, have the greatest impact on you. So And while I know Perry for a long, long time, I loved his energy at the table, my third name would be Collins. That would be my third name.
Okay. Anyone else?
For my third,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Schofield.
Carl is the third as well.
Anyone else want to?
Did you have?
Jim, I don't think.
I had three.
You do, okay.
I had Moy, Flemming, and Schofield.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Carl's the only one without a third up here.
Okay, Carl, would you like to?
Ms. Flemming.
So much for a tiebreaker.
Yeah, you know, and it's always tough because they all do bring a different perspective and they're all strong candidates. And we all see something different in these interviews that are maybe more important to us than what it is to the next committee member here. So it's not going to be the same, and that's fine. Joe, go ahead, please.
I don't know if you want to talk about these or not. I mean, I from the place that I fall apart on is Carolyn versus Anderson or Collins. And I mean, Carolyn does have the CMAP stuff, but I don't see CMAP's not going to be involved with this anyway. So I see her almost as an ex officio with the contacts she'll have. And I think if we take Anderson or Collins as an alternative to that, she won't have a vote, but she's certainly going to have impact as the person carrying CMAP stuff back and forth. And that's my only, that would be my change versus, I mean, I'd rather switch my stuff from Collins to Anderson than to, and I'd ask that Carolyn be like an ex officio, not necessarily, because she does have all the CMAP responsibilities. And I can't imagine we're going to do a plan without CMAP already being involved, or at least seeing what we're doing.
Okay, go ahead.
So I can agree with you, Joe, so we gotta break this somewhere because they are so talented. And that reasoning, I can buy that reasoning. I can understand that with Carolyn. So if, in that case, then I've always respected John Collins' involvement in committees that I served with him. He served on two of them with me and was very good in his input in those committees. He did his homework. So I would flip mine from Carolyn to Collins if we're looking to do a consensus.
So what I heard was Joe leaning towards Garrett
Well,
Anderson
I
a
would
little bit
take
more,
Garrett
and you're leaning
Anderson.
back to Mr.
I'm just
Collins.
trying to find a way to move it to get to majority, but if Collins is, I'm fine with Collins or Anderson. And I'd still stay with Perry, and I'd still stay with Flemming.
I'm going to take another question to Donna. Do we have anyone from the Woodstock area that you could name offhand, or?
You're live.
Oh, that's right. I only spent 40 years in Crystal Lake and I live next door now.
Yeah. Well, I just see some of these commissions getting overloaded with the southeast corner of the county, that's all.
You have, so,
Right.
you have your Woodstock, but you're more right nearby, right town. But you've got somebody who's Bull Valley that's very open, very more rural. It's in Bull Valley, Upper Bull Valley Road. You've got Charles Eldridge, who is up in Richmond, but he's not like in town. He's more, he's on a bigger piece of property. Nancy is in Sun City. You do have Carrie at Johnson is in Cary, more urban. McCann is on Kishwaukee, so it's very rural and has some farm.
Oh, yeah, I forgot Mary McKenna.
So then you have, Ilios is more in
Crystal
town.
Lake. Yeah, she's Crystal.
Fleming was
Crystal Lake.
Woodstock, right? In Linda?
Who?
Wasn't Fleming Woodstock when she lived
She's
in Woodstock?
Woodstock now.
That's nice, but. I like that you've read it.
And works in Lorraine.
Yeah.
And works in Lorraine.
Yeah.
Bergen.
May I interject
Yes.
for just a minute? Something that Lou said to me made a whole bunch of sense. That Mr. Anderson is part of Woodstock. If Woodstock is going to be the next growth area, which it could be if Metric comes out and puts that transfer station in,
Right.
that will be the next big deal. And that will change the face of a whole bunch of stuff out here. I, as much as I like Mr. Collins, I like everything that he said, for the sake of that kind of growth, looking inside. I like Mr. Anderson. It would mean that we would have to change our schedule around a little bit to work with him, but that, it's your.
I heard him say he had city council on the first and third Tuesdays.
Yeah, that's. the-
Tuesday, no Thursday?
No, no.
No Thursday?
Is that first?
Then we're good. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but I do understand, Mr. Collins made a very good presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Collins is fine. I just think
I also have
the
a,
experience of the municipality and the municipality partnership that we're looking for on that commission, it's Mr. Anderson's spot. So.
I think with that logic, I could switch my Schofield to Anderson.
I also would add, here's the other thing I just want to say. While I think there are ways for Mr. Moy to serve the county. And there, you can shake your head, but I'm just saying, for and I don't disagree with you, and I wish there was some way that we could keep.
One more.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know. I know.
We have to make it 13 for the vote.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, if I were going to, and I would lean toward John Collins because of what Mr. Reinert has said.
Kearns.
Kurtz. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, okay, I'm looking at you and
Hey, I'm within reach of you,
It's
though.
it's a Freudian slip.
I know.
How many times does miss ever name?
Here's for it's worth,
Okay.
I can do Anderson, Flemming, and Moy, that would be fine.
Okay.
And take me off Collins, and that, I think that gives you a majority on those three.
Can I add something, and I'm not sure where.
Yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure where you're headed with Moy, in terms of your comments, because I know you're not on there for him. I understand that there's people who've known him for a long time, and I think he's had a lot, he's been on the board, he has that perspective. But if, part of the thing is, I think the other people were coming in here that had more, like, focus on what they thought were issues, whereas I felt from him, as much as I think he's contributed over time, it has been more about getting back involved in the game and being a part of something, as opposed to, we have some really serious problems that we need to be addressing going forward.
Thank you, Carolyn.
So I get that people have relationships with people over time, and so they can bring that part of the table, but if you're looking at this objectively, people came in, I do think Garrett has this opportunity to bring to the table, but he also talked about the fact that you can't force municipalities to do something. If we want to work as a county, we need to get buy-in from everybody. And I think so. My concern about Moy is you also we're trying to create commissions that are more reflective of the county, which includes age. So even though some of us are more in the, well, I'm not 50s, but, we've got people who.
You're still in your 40s.
No, so I mean, it's just.
Forever, come on.
I just mean, I know because people have known people for a long time, they become that person that you go to, but then we don't bring that average age down, and we don't get that reflection of the entire county if we keep going with the people that we've known for years. And so this is an opportunity to bring in some fresh ideas and people who have passion about things that we are facing as a county. So I would go Flemming, Anderson, and Collins, and that allows for that opportunity.
My thought.
I want to interject this, John, because I don't know that the whole committee realizes that, but as chairman of P&D, I could have a seat at that table, but because of my schedule, I've asked Carolyn Campbell to do that, and she agreed, and I think she'd be a great commissioner, and I don't know that all of you guys knew that. So she's already, I don't think you've attended a meeting yet, but,
Nope, nope.
but because.
I had one since you.
Yeah, right. So she's been going back and looking at the meetings, reviewing the material. I think has a pretty good feel for what that commission needs at this time. So, and I don't think you guys probably knew that I had done that, so I apologize for not letting you know ahead of time.
So
Go ahead,
when,
John.
Thanks for that. You know, just to follow through, Perry wasn't even on my radar until he spoke today. I think he was spot on and actually is just exactly how I feel about his outlook on the county and the future moving forward. So, I mean, I feel pretty strong about Perry.
And if I can add to that, I thought he brought a lot of energy. If you want to call him a senior, I thought he brings a lot of energy to it also.
Yeah, and that part was fine. Yeah, and I guess I'll go back to Carolyn, and I respect Joe's opinion on that too. But what we need is people with experience in these commissions to, because we're trying to get this done in a year, what should have been 2 years because of the previous situation of that commission. It stumbled a little bit. So we need somebody that's going to really be able to get in there and understand how to work within a commission and move it from point A to point B. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I think almost to weed this thing out a little bit more, we're going to drop a bottom one off or bottom two off, and that gives us our 3. And so I would flip from Collins up to Andrew to Garrett and support Garrett Anderson. And that leaves you with the 3 that the majority of us are on, the retail, Schofield and Collins.
Which are 2 good ones too. I mean,
They're excellent. I mean, I wish you could go to 15, but the 15 I could see could make a disaster. Exactly. I think 11 is hard to herd cats, but you're willing to do that. And so I would think right there should be our motion
well, I just,
for those 3. I would, if at some point we have to make a motion.
Yeah, let's have Lou give her last comments here, please.
so I did some research on the candidates before this meeting, and I thank you for articulating, because that's really what I was trying to figure out, how to separate the personal, especially around Mr. Moy. I did not see a lot of action-directed stuff from Mr. Moy. Ran a great restaurant. Yes, he's a really nice guy. Yes, he has really great energy. This is a planning commission, and I was looking for people who brought that skill set to the table that I knew how to do, that demonstrated that they could do that stuff. In my research, that was not demonstrated to me. So that's all I'm going to say. And I'm so thankful, Joe, you came up with the Schofield solution, because Carolyn is excellent. She's excellent. So that is why having known Perry just wasn't good enough to put him on the board. It just wasn't good enough. It wasn't.
Okay.
So that's it.
Okay. Any other input? Otherwise, we've all had our say. We moved it around. Go ahead, Joe.
I would say to counter that on Perry, he's the only one that talked about the fact that you got Metra and the roads and the other things that come into play for this county to develop. No one else brought that to the table when they said things. And that's, that's the counter. He does know that aspect of the county, and that's why I think it's not the fact that I've known it, because I don't know, but the reality is I've known everybody on that board for very many number of years.
Yeah,
So it's not just who I know, because I know the only person I didn't know here today coming in was Flemming. The rest of them I've met and have worked with for years, and respect all of them. I mean, there's not a bad candidate on this list.
Is it good, Carolyn?
I'm sorry, yeah, and I'm not going to argue the
Yeah.
point, because obviously whatever the majority is the majority, so but One of the things to keep in mind too is we got a really strong Division of Transportation that is at the table every single meeting. And if anyone's going to understand what our transportation needs are, we've already got that at the table. This is not something we're not adding anything new. I appreciate the fact that he's insightful enough to think that this is an issue. That area, in my opinion, is covered in terms of what has been said. You can go back and listen to the meetings. They're there. So anyway, but that doesn't, obviously, the majority is the majority.
Okay, Jim?
So I know time is of the essence with a couple of us here this morning. So I'm going to move a motion forward to select as our number one person Flemming, Anderson, and then Moy.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Reiner. Further discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll go to vote. Joe?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes to move those forward for recommendation to the chairman.
And I hope we expand the board.
I think we will,
Excellent.
yes.
Oh,
But
man.
either way-
Truly, every one of those candidates were great,
Yes,
even the ones that weren't on the board.
That's right.
but either way, we have Ms. Flemming as,
Do you want to just like amend the recommendation to go with 3 instead of 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, just, we can have Kathy add that text.
okay,
If you're consistent with that.
That's fine.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing further we need to do on that?
I think we're good. Thank you
Okay.
very much for your flexibility.
Okay, that sucks. Okay,
Joe, what time you get?
great conversation on that. We got presentations, Scott, any presentations?
No.
No presentations?
We got old business.
No routine consent, old business. Adam? Could I have a motion for the resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement between McHenry County and the
So moved.
McHenry-Lake County Soil and Water? So moved by Lou and seconded by Carolyn Campbell. Adam, you want to give us a little background on this, please?
Sure. So this is the IGA between McHenry County and McHenry-Lake County Soil and Water Conservation District. This will be a 10-year. This is up for a 10-year renewal agreement. Just came off of a 10-year agreement. Where this position fulfills is a void in our department for the wetland specialist. So there's wetland requirements within the stormwater management ordinance. Soil and water conservation engaged with the county, I believe it was 2008 even, once our wetland specialist left the county. So as opposed to filling that role with a new body, it was a lot more cost effective to bring in a consultant to fulfill that specialty. So that's really where we're at. We brought this forward last month, but there was a request to have a conversation with Soil and Water Conservation, so we did bring Spring Duffy is present with us as well. If there's any questions as to what established it, we're happy to go through whatever you need.
Okay, Joe, go ahead, please.
So the calls I got about this, Dan Ziller, Farm Bureau, the concern, so what, and I think maybe it's an ordinance issue more than so when Soil and Water puts their hat on, for a farmer that's coming in and fixing a drain tile, it goes to FSA. Okay? When they put the hat on for stormwater for the county, it goes to the Army Corps. And so the complaint from the farmers is that conflict means that they now have to go 2 places where they used to go 1. And that's what's, I think, causing the root problem with the farm first being upset with this, is that they would much rather go to FSA than to the Army Corps.
Sure.
And I don't blame them. And so my question is, can we change our ordinance so that, a farm tile becomes a FSA problem, not an Army Corps problem? And that's.
I don't think it's just our ordinance, and as Joanne
And I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think it's gonna dip into
There's some federal
federal
regulations on here if you're getting federal support.
That's the complaint.
Hi, Joanna.
Okay.
Do the new board members familiar with Joanna's position here? Go ahead and just,
Joanna Coletti, I'm Water Resources Manager, Chief Stormwater Engineer in the Planning and Development Department underneath Adam.
thank you.
So if you remember the chart from last time, I'm on the blue column. So, to answer Joe's question regarding kind of the difference between the two organizations, so all wetlands are either jurisdictional or not jurisdictional. So with respect to that, the Army Corps takes the jurisdictional wetlands. If they're isolated, that's where our stormwater management ordinance comes into play. In our stormwater management ordinance, which is a countywide ordinance, so each one of our communities follows the same ordinance with respect to development. Any impacts to tiles, any maintenance on tiles would be an exempt activity, so there's not even a permit necessary for those types of activities out there. If there's going to be new tile, that's where the FSA comes in, or that's where the Army Corps would come in with respect to if there are subsidies out there on those properties. So they need to follow and get a permit through the FSA. But Spring's position, she's going out there if somebody applies for a permit, or if we get a call with respect to somebody's doing some digging out on a property. She's out there, she's got her regulatory hat on for the ordinance, the stormwater management ordinance, to do an inspection to see if it is a tile replacement, or if she can understand it at the time, going out in the field, or if it's a new set of tile. That information comes back to us. We make that determination in-house. So Spring doesn't send out a violation letter. Spring doesn't contact the owner and say, hey, you're doing something wrong. She's our eyes and ears in the field with respect to inspections, and that's how that kind of plays out. The Army Corps has their process. We can't go over and above them because they're a federal agency with respect to their rules, their laws, their ordinance, or their requirements in the field or in their code. Us, we have some flexibility if that need arises. We can modify our stormwater management ordinance through our stormwater commission, which Jim Kearns is the chair of at this point, and then it ultimately would come to the county board for adoption if there's any modification to the stormwater ordinance that's necessary or is recommended.
So the procedure right now for the farmer in the ag community, and we have municipalities on one side of this issue, and I agree that we need some oversight there on things, but that's where the county and the municipalities come into, and then we have the agriculture community, which they have to fill out. So I understand this because this is part of the thing I'm learning here a little bit. Is this? There's a form that the application that anybody wants to go and apply. They're going to go to the FSA.
The 1026.
The 1026 form. Okay, and so then step us through a little bit that 1026 form. My understanding is the FSA, when they do the 1026 form, when it's filled out, that it's walked across the hall, but it's in the same building, right? With
I can answer.
Well,
Spring.
that's great, Spring. I'm glad you're here.
What's your position there?
Jim, just a second. Spring, we're on film and being recorded, so could I ask you to come up and maybe Adam could grab another chair for you or something, and please have a seat at the table. And for the recording, if you want to introduce yourself, please, and your position and.
I'm Spring Duffy. I'm the Executive Director of the McHenry-Lake County Soil Water Conservation District, and I've also served as your wetland specialist for the last 10 years. As far as what happens with the 1026, so the farmer comes in, files his 1026 form with the Farm Service Agency, or FSA, and then that form is then submitted to NRCS, which is the sister agency. So that goes to them, and NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service, then submits that to their state office, which has a state wetland team.
So the state office makes that determination of whether it is a wetland or a farmed wetland, and if that farmer can repair those tiles, which normally repair and replace they can do.
Okay,
Same grade, same depth, same size, that type of thing. That is allowed. It's
Okay.
allowed in our ordinance. It's allowed with the Army Corps of Engineers as well.
all right. So,
It's just for wetland areas that are currently wetlands that do not have tiles, or if they want to expand the tiles into an area. And that's what the NRCS is looking for. Soil and water has nothing to do with that. We're just in the same office. We're just housed in the same building. I
Okay.
have no say in any of that.
so it goes through the FSA, then it goes through a third party here now, a second party, which is the NRCS, right?
That's because Farm Service Agency is the admin,
Mhm.
and NRCS is the technical part of the
Okay.
federal government.
So it's cleared by two of those,
Clear by
the
one,
permit,
NRCS.
okay? It's cleared by them, the application filled FSA, okay. So when you come in as the executive director of the Soil and Water Conservation, right? Okay. And what is your job for the soil and water conservation, not with the county? What is your job with the soil and water conservation as the executive director to this organization, to that organization, meaning the soil and water?
What is my duties?
Yeah, what are you,
What order?
what is the mission of the soil and water, your duties
So my duties,
as executive director?
okay, my duties is budgeting and financing. It's also, I am in charge of the State of Illinois cost share program, so I administer that. So farmers can come in and landowners can come in and apply for funding for establishing no-till or strip-till on their fields that are currently conventionally tilled. We can establish pollinator plantings. We can add cover crops and provide that funding. There's all sorts of different cost share programs that we provide to the community. So that's one of my jobs, is to meet out with the landowners, see if they're eligible, be able to fill out all that paperwork and submit and rank those projects so that I am administering whatever cost share the state provides. I also do a lot of the natural resource information reports that you see. So I do prepare the full reports. I have another staff member that does the letters, the smaller type changes. So I do all those. I'm also in charge of our tree and fish sales. I'm also in charge of our education programs. A lot of our education programs, the largest one is our Envirothon program with high school students in the area that we put on. It's the Northeastern Illinois Envirothon, and those students participate in the areas of aquatics, soils, forestry, wildlife, and there's a current topic that changes every year, and the winner of that goes on to the state competition, and then the winner of the state competition goes on to the national or international, because it actually includes Canada and
Okay,
and
okay.
China.
So in this whole, and to what Mr. Godamon, Joe says, was talking about, speaking, the landowner, farmer, comes in, fills out his 1026 permit, goes across to the NRCS, they approve it, right?
Well, yeah, I wish it was that easy, but it goes down to the state level, and so our NRCS
Okay,
never
so-
sees it.
Okay, so now it goes to the state level and they approve it.
Correct.
Okay. So when we have and this is where I can understand where they're coming from, the farm community is coming from a little bit here. So it's already gone all the way to the state and been approved and everything else. All that research has been done on this, the wetlands and the soil and the tiling and everything else. All that's been done in this form and everything else. And then we have a violation through this position, or proposed violation or a question. We don't go to the NRCS or the state and ask those questions. We go right to the Army Corps of Engineers if we don't have an answer.
We cannot, by law, see any of the paperwork from NRCS. Because of the Farm Bill, there is a disclosure, non-disclosure information. We cannot request that information from the NRCS. That information has to come from the landowner or the leasee, whoever employed the NRCS to do that farm wetland determination.
So we even asked the question, did they fill out the 1026?
Yes.
I do all the time.
Okay, so if they haven't filled out the 1026, I'm gonna ask a couple actions here. If they haven't filled out the 1026, what do you do?
I tell them to fill out the 1026
Okay.
because I don't want them to have to hire a wetland consultant when they can get it for free.
Okay, and so then it goes to the state again,
Correct.
all right? So if you ask the question up front and they filled out the 1026, why do we have reports of violations then?
I don't report those as violations until it comes back, and if they are in violation based on that 1026 and they provide that to me, then yes, it's a violation. If it comes back that they're doing something that they're totally allowed and in their rights to do, I just tell Joanna to let it go, that it's been resolved.
Can I ask a question? And maybe I'm lost here. I don't know what we're getting at here. What?
Exactly what Joe said. We have a conflict. We're hiring a position, and we've done it and this is a 10-year, and you can come back and say it's cancelable in 30 days written notice. But what happens is, we just finished out a 10-year contract, even though since I've been on the board, I've heard this complaint. And we've never brought up about canceling it or correcting it. And now's the time for us to correct this. And I really like Joe's suggestion of taking this and try to mirror our ordinance with the state and the federal.
We can't.
I was gonna say-
But right now, we're doing, these guys are in many instances following two paths, and they didn't used to have to follow two paths.
So what do we do about that?
Well, that's why I brought it, that's what we got to hear. This is kind of like the thing that will bring it up. I mean, I know that this has been on for 10 years, and it won't, I suspect that most of us will be gone from here in 10 years. And so I don't know if we don't look at it and try to find a resolution today, I don't know that it will get resolved. The next 10 years, somebody else will bring it up.
So is the question then that we don't vote to support this? We vote no, or do we let it linger another 30?
I'm not necessarily even opposed to having this here. What I'm more interested in doing is making this be something we talk about and try to resolve.
Okay. So you're
I'm
not saying no,
necessarily-
you're saying let's keep it on the agenda,
keep it on the agenda,
continue to
make it work.
navigate, and yeah, I just wanted to know what.
I'm not, this isn't about let's get the soil and water conservation district. It's
Okay.
how can we straighten these ordinances out so that when a farmer walks in, because he needs this work or she needs this work, and the path's laid out, this is what you're going to follow, this is how you're going to do it, and we end the
Okay.
confusion.
Thank you.
And sometimes it could be as simple as maybe they get a checkoff list that they hand out at the beginning that says, by the way, here's everything you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
So are you suggesting, Joe, that we might table this and give staff an opportunity to
I think that would be an excellent way to
resolve
do it.
that? Okay, then let's go to staff, and you're all interconnected, so whoever wants to answer. Do you see, or you need to research it, some time for a resolution, which you're not going to automatically say this is the resolution, how to resolve it. You're going to need some time to work between yourselves and come up with a solution for this? And do you think it's possible?
Can I ask some questions of where the concerns are so that I understand a little bit more as
Well,
to what
one of the things about when there's a file, a complaint file, or whatever, however we want to phrase it, that when gets to the point of a disagreement, who makes that decision? Does it go to the courts, or my understanding is actually the FSA is kind of the jurist over whether or not they're right or not?
Sure. So in our process, if you guys are familiar with the process in-house, let's step back a second with respect to, we get that call saying X farmer or somebody's in a field doing some work. We open up a request for service at that point. So this is our violation path at this point, because we check, we see that there's no permit on file. Whether or not it's exempt, we don't know that yet because we don't know the extent or the process or the project in general. So we open up a request for service, one of our inspectors goes out. If it's a wetland related one, we would have Spring go out and take some investigative photos and provide a report, a memo back saying what she saw in the field. If we see that, again, we don't have a permit on file, but it would rise to the level, well, let's say it is through a wetland, and we can't tell if a permit has been necessary or not, we don't know the extent of the project, we will send out a violation letter. That's the process. This would be with a building permit too. This is with any one of our projects in-house. If we don't have a permit on file and we know it's potentially a violation based on our ordinance standards or our code standards, building code, that letter goes out. Okay. At that point, they come back in and say, hey, I'm just replacing tile, I'm doing this, I have my 1026, or what do you need to resolve this? If we can get that information right away, we'll close that violation out. Okay. But until we have that conversation, that's our process. That's how we get to the point of getting that additional information to either close it out or proceed with the next step of a 10-day letter, or ultimately court if they don't respond with the right information, don't get a permit, or can't restore the violation.
Okay, but we already know they have a 1026.
We don't know that.
From Spring.
No, we don't know
I can't share
that.
that information. I can look at it, I can't share that.
So it's not a conflict that you have it? Because you call
I
her
do
and
not-
tell her?
No.
I don't understand that part, and that's why I agree with your tabling, Jill.
No, I'd like.
Did we
what I'd
second
like
that
to-
already?
No, I'd like to
No, but
finish,
it-
can you finish what you mean by that, because I don't understand either, you
So-
have it, but you don't, I don't.
Legally, I could go into their file if I knew that it was done and see that information. But I can't share a copy or anything with Joanna or anyone else in the public. I can encourage that landowner, if they call me and say, I got a violation from the county, I have my 1026, I'll just say, please share a copy with the county, that you have this completed in your file.
But couldn't we, even at the beginning, we start out saying, by the way, you're applying, you're filing your form. Why don't you go send a copy of this over to the county?
Do you know
I
what?
can't require you to do that.
It's
But
a no-brainer.
that,
Well,
you know,
it's-
I have letters at the office, I have signs at the office that say that.
okay.
If they read them or follow them, I can't change if they do it or not. I've tried
Exactly.
that, I've done meetings with groups indicating that we'd like this process completed, that this is how it is, that we can't share that information, the federal government can't share your information, you have to do
Could we
it.
put a form in your file that says, please sign this so I have permission to send it to them?
But I don't know when all the 1026s come in. They don't come across my desk, so I don't have any idea. It's part
So
of it.
once you've educated the consumer, then it's the consumer's responsibility to follow through, and we don't like that, but that's kind of the whole HIPAA thing. I mean, that wall that protects your private information, I get that you're trying to streamline this, and it sounds like you already have orientation to the process material. You can do a flow chart and say, yes, we go here, no, it goes here. But I also know, Joe, that people don't read that stuff.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, and so while I am hearing our intention to make this easier for the farmer and to straighten out the path, I also know that I know that we can't make people do things to make your job easier. Can't make them follow the process.
I don't know if it's so much, I
Jim,
don't know if
excuse
it's
me,
so much
I
easier.
just want to interject here. I think staff has got a direction that if they could work on somehow massaging this, how it works, to make it just a little bit simpler, a little more straight line, they can do that. We're still going to have a contract in place that is part of this resolution, and that contract expired in November of 2022. So I think that in my opinion, we should put this contract in place with a motion today and ask staff to work with Spring or however this needs to be resolved to make it a little bit clearer, straightforward process. But I don't think tabling this resolution is the proper path. I think we need to get this back in place because it's already expired. And I think then we'll ask staff to come back. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I'm kind of request that similar action. Just from an operational standpoint, we are working without the contract. Having the contract in place would also allow us to really meet and make these, if you will, corrections to the process. It can also allow us to kind of get with some of the focus groups or some of the louder voices that are having the issues and really iron it out. It's not the only time that our codes will interface with other groups, whether it's the fire districts that we work with locally, the health department, the state fire marshal, and if it turns into this group and we use that, it's kind of that same approach. I would, as director of the department, I would really appreciate getting the contract in place so that we could start that approach.
I'm kind of confused. If you have a contract and it's going to say you do this, this, and this, how do you go back and change that once everybody signs it and agrees to it?
The contract will be in place for what the
Or
responsibilities
is it just financial?
It's, this is financial, it's the $30,000 contract. But it'll put the contract in place so they can work together. What they're fine tuning is they're tweaking their policy on how they work together.
Yeah,
But they're gonna work together one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have to. So I think it's important to have the contract in place.
It establishes the relationship.
Yes,
And
and which has
10
been,
years.
And in addition to that, what it would enforce is the regulations that are going to be within the stormwater management codes right now. So we do have technically a void in terms of operation.
And just a quick point to what you just said, I mean, it automatically renews every year. It's a 1-year increment, so unless it's terminated by other parties. So we're not entering a 10-year set thing, and I would think even in the 10 year, there would be provisions for termination.
I'll move to approve it for 1 year.
Yeah.
just a second. John, you okay? You wanted to speak? I didn't want to
Well, I
get you
mean,
cut.
two things came up, but exactly, that would have been my answer with my floor.
I'm not interested
I'd
in not
approve it for
having
1
this
year, but
first.
there's something that needs to be fixed here. I can see this, and I know just enough to be dangerous. But when the complaint's made, if they had that 1026, is it the 1026? And they make a call, we go directly to Duffy. Why don't we just go directly to you, Joanne? You see if they have it or not, and then turn it over to her. The other thing too is, do we need a contract with a separate entity as a person? Why don't we just do it with your corporation? Why are we doing it with you?
It is my corporation.
Right, so why don't we just make it
I would
with
say
emphasis?
I'd go back to motion. I'll approve it for a year and we'll get this
Yeah,
straightened
'cause I
out in
can see
between.
problems.
And then it won't, then we're not changing the structure and we can renew.
So it doesn't renew automatically.
Well, I don't see anything in the resolution that says it's a 10-year.
The resolution allows, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, let's go ahead.
A resolution allows for termination by either party. It really automatically renews after every year unless it's terminated by either party. So it's, I mean, you have, that's how they get you when you're applying for something with that credit card and has automatic renewal, but you never remember to do it. But if this is of an issue, you don't really have to change anything. You just remember that this is not something you're necessarily going to read. You know, you're going to keep on top of it.
Right,
And
it has to be fixed or it's done.
it's done, but you don't even really have to change anything. Just terminate it in a year. You don't have to make it a 1-year contract.
And we could have it on the agenda to see, show us how you have modified your procedure to meet the concern. I mean, we could do that.
And that would have to even be before a year. I mean, I would.
No, I think it
it's
should
done
be
now.
there like,
Right.
come back to us in 60 days and show us what you've created around the concerns of this commission. Report back to us and tell
I don't
us.
think there's any doubt that they will do it.
Of course
I just
not.
think that way it keeps it up on our agenda and we come back to it. And I don't want them to not be paid. I don't want any of that stuff to happen.
Right.
I'm perfectly fine with just some way of saying, you know, in my mind, you know, we got a 1 year, we're gonna revisit this in a year. That's all.
Right.
And if we get it resolved beforehand, great, and we'll
Then you
revisit
can
it.
make it an automatic renewal after that.
Yeah, but what Carolyn's saying, it doesn't do that.
It doesn't. Either
Every
way.
year, it gets
You're saying it's a yearly thing.
Not if he changes it right now, but if he says it's not an automatic renewal
It's
after
a
1
one-year
year.
contract.
It's a 1 year
But
contract.
it already says that. Is that what you're saying?
He's amending it.
But you have to do an action either way. You either have to do an action to renew it in a year, or you have to take an action to terminate it.
And I'm
So-
okay to renew it in a year, to come back and renew it in a
Now,
year.
it automatically renews, we don't take an action to renew it.
No.
No,
No,
it
it
goes
goes
to 1 year
modified.
if
I'm
they
saying,
modify to.
my
Amendment.
motion would modify to say, they're gonna come back in a year and we're gonna extend it or not extend it in a year. But we'll have to take action to do it.
I second that.
Is that a motion on the floor?
That's my motion. yes.
Okay. And is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, so we're approving this resolution, but not the contract, in a
We're
sense.
approving the contract, but we're amending the contract to say it will be subject to be renewed 1 year from now, and it will have to be renewed, not just some.
Doesn't automatic.
Okay.
It's gonna be November because we're already.
Well, it's
Staff.
November, that's fine.
Yeah,
This should be
exactly.
done by then.
Okay.
Well, that seems,
I'm sure staff can handle that by changing that
So it'll go
contract.
to November or will it go to January?
Take it to November, so
Well,
it
that's-
leaves the time. There's
Because
no
this
gap.
is dated back in November, so
Yeah.
staff
We'll be
can
done by
change the contract and amend it for a year?
No, yeah, that's manageable, totally manageable.
Okay.
We can do that?
And-
That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll even, it'll be, you'll be happy to.
That resolves it. We're gonna lose a vote here in a minute, so, Mr. Gottmeier made a motion to approve this resolution with amending the contract to make it a 1 year,
Which will
term,
expire in November.
so that next November, we'll be looking at this, seconded by Mr. Kearns. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing no discussion, we'll go to vote. John?
Yes.
Carolyn Campbell?
It's either way, but short.
That's a yes. That's a yes by
That's a
Joe.
Yes.
Yes by Jim. Lou?
no.
We have a no, and Carl?
Yes.
Okay, and that's just fine with me. So I think staff has got the direction on this, come
Yep.
back with some tweaks hopefully, and either way, we're gonna review it in a year.
Yes, so what we'll look to do
Or
is
sooner.
have some framework for you in April to talk about, what are either some resolutions or some, our biggest hurdles yet in front of us.
Okay, sounds great, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Definitely.
Everyone?
Thank you.
Okay.
11:20.
Joanna, when do you have the next
You're
stormwater
out.
meeting scheduled?
Well, if I could get the municipalities to respond with their recommendations, I could hold elections.
Okay, Renee.
Oh, for the-
So I'm pushing.
You ready for me?
Well, yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna be very quick.
So,
Joe, you know what, before you got here,
Yeah.
Joe gave us a pretty good rundown of the House bill, and he left us a little bleak, but we're.
I just have a follow.
So,
Thank you.
thanks, Joe. So, at our committee meetings, Renee will introduce herself if the new people don't know her. And she goes over the zoning applications that we're going to see at the county board meeting. It's not really open for discussion at this level. We're really just like getting a quick report from Renee and giving us a heads up if there's an issue that we need to dig deeper into before we go to the county board meeting with it. Is that
Yes,
a
that's
fair
correct.
assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Renee Hanlon. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning and Development and the Planning Manager for the county as well. So the hearings that you'll be voting on this time, mostly pretty straightforward. You have one very standard conditional use permit for a landscape business with outdoor storage. There was no opposition there. You have a classic A1 to A2, and you have a variation in an industrial area where the guy is doing a rental business. So he wanted to display the equipment he has for rental out in the yard, but the ordinance technically requires him to put a fence around it. Well, he wants to display his equipment, so he got a variation to not do the screening so that he can actually display. The only one that there was some controversy with was Propel. And that is, a gentleman has established dog sanctuary for elder dogs. They probably won't be adopted out. It's mostly dogs that come to him for end-of-life care. So he purchased a property with a large ag building on the property that was built to the correct setbacks and everything. He plans to use that building as the primary part of his business. It only has a 10-foot setback, and for a dog kennel, you need a 100-foot setback. So he came and asked for a variation for a setback.
He said 20 this morning, and I spoke with him yesterday, so just.
It's 20.
20 to the barn,
It
and
was
he's
20.
made some changes to where the runs will be on the other side of the barn. I
Yes.
think the barn's 100 foot wide or something.
Yeah, it'll be
Yes, it
100
is.
foot towards 173, and giving up the other two that he wanted, where yes, you do see the 20 foot from the fence to the barn, but with the soundproof and everything, and being to the south towards 173.
Yeah, so he agreed to everything that the hearing officer talked to him about, sound attenuation in the barn, moving those runs to the south side so they would be in conformance. You will still hear from the neighbors. As far as I know, they plan to attend the cow meeting and speak during public comment.
How many neighbors are we talking?
2.
Two. Okay.
I thought there was only one, the fence line was the one
There
neighbor.
were 2 neighbors that came to all the hearings.
Okay.
One of the neighbors is represented by counsel.
Oh, okay.
And I know that they will definitely be there. There's, I guess the neighbors were also saying there's another dog breeder in the area, which is perfectly allowable, so.
Yeah, that's to the east on 173, more into Spring Grove. And you also have the veterinarian within a half a mile to the west on 173, so anything that happens, you're well taken care of.
So
Are
that
they
was the neighbors.
largely surrounded by cornfields? Aren't they out there?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ag land out there,
Okay,
right?
so I encourage you to research this on your own.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
okay.
one that we do have an issue with.
Okay, sorry.
Carl has been out there, Lou, and took some pictures. If you're interested, he can get
Okay.
those to you. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I'm really sorry, because I should know this. What's the difference between, you have approved where you have the number 70, and you've got 2 that just say approved?
Those went before the hearing officer. They're
Oh.
just variations.
Oh, got it.
And
Okay.
just variations go to the hearing officer.
Okay.
Fence line, barn.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'll encourage everybody to look into it. As I said, Carl has some pictures,
And that's
more information if you're interested.
Thank you.
Is that all you have, then, Renee?
That's it,
Okay,
yes.
thanks. Okay, Adam, discussion on HB 4412, and that's the solar and wind, the state is.
Sure, so you know what, Joe summarized it pretty well. We have a little bit more detail to offer. We provided the letter from the Illinois State Association of Counties that kind of outlines, this kind of it pretty well details what modifications will need to happen, what procedures will need to happen. What we provided in addition to that in our memo was a comparison of how that actually plays here. So we know that there will be an amendment to the UDO to accommodate, to modify our setback requirements. It'll also modify our hearing procedures, because with an application it has to go before the county board within 45 days. Right now, our typical procedures are 60 days minimal, usually 90. So we'll have.
So the state's saying 45 days, it has to come
The
before us?
state is saying 45 days.
From the date of application to the conclusion of the public hearings, 45 days.
Oh.
It's quick.
We
So
might not
it-
even have to be able to make a meeting.
It doesn't give us time to
Respond.
take it to staff plat. So that would be the biggest change in our process with these. All other conditional uses, we take to staff plat and kind of work out the details, the technical stuff first. But we'll no longer be allowed to do that because we wouldn't meet the time frame.
So we have to change our ordinances to match and be in compliance with the state law.
Before May 30th.
And we do have this into the state's attorney's office for an opinion. It's got a lot of the items that we talked about. How are we gonna get this through the public hearing process? What happens if we run into some technical issues? And now we're right up against this basically mandated approval. There's a lot to look into for them. They don't have it prepared for this meeting, but Norm's given us the confidence that it's gonna be the 13th is the due date from his staff. I'm hoping before, but at least next week we'll know pretty clear.
So how do we, this is another thing the state's sort of shoving on us.
Yeah.
How do we, per resolution, per contacting, or to say, hey, we know it's a law, we have to follow it, but we disagree with it, and this is why. We can't get this done in this time. It needs to be amended.
Sure.
Would we do that by resolution?
I mean, perhaps. I mean, I've seen that going forward through the county boards through the past couple months. There's some other jurisdictions, some other counties that are talking about litigating it locally.
Or do we wait till we hear back from Norm?
I think that is going to be a Norm question, and that's part of what will be up for that discussion when their opinion does come out. I mean, I don't think we would be prepared to necessarily take that rate.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate that they force this on us, but at some point we have to say that that's great, you did it, and we don't like it, and we can't make it work. So where do we go? Right?
Right, yeah, and right now I don't see any out language in this bill. In the
Okay.
law.
So Luke, just a second, Carl, I had a
Okay.
brief question. Go ahead, Carl.
Outside, have you guys made up bullet points or topics that, hey, these are problems, and submitted it to our local representatives downstate saying, hey, your law that you created is gonna do that? I mean, another avenue, you got Norm, but has
Illinois State
everybody?
Association of County has done what?
Okay, I didn't see that, but, okay.
Yeah, that's part of that letter. A lot of that was put into, and we've made it known.
Okay.
So, and some of the counties that I'm referring to, that's part of the Illinois Association of Zoning Officials. Those, our counterparts, those folks have been talking about pushing it to their state's attorney to litigate, or interest in doing that.
Lou, did you?
Yeah, I do have a question. What caused them to change the timeline, to shrink it? What was that a result of?
Lobbyists.
No, come on, everything comes.
Yeah, I'm not touching it. No,
Every policy comes from something that didn't work. What were they trying to fix that they heard or learned that wasn't working?
Peter,
that was my first question too.
Peter, did you have some input on that, or?
Well, I mean, to me, if you ask the industry to write the rules, or they are allowed to write the rules, and they want to move things along.
Do you think
They don't want to work at the pace of XYZ County and commissions and farm bureaus and everything. You know, they want to get these things done. Time is money, and so if we know that the industry lobbyists were influential in this, and it is consistent with a higher level plan that the state has for clean energy. So you marry those two, and
Who sponsored this bill?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, Carolyn, go ahead.
Yeah, just, so Pete, you were talking about how the counties had their information out, because I mean, in addition to the time frame, and we were talking about what requirements.
Was that in the packet?
Yeah, it is in the packet.
But that, is that the,
It's that 6-page.
Yeah, the issue brief.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I have that. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Well, and that's, of course, that's where I'm getting it from. 'Cause decommissioning-
I think there is some anticipated cleanup. You know, that's the word that often gets used. You know, when legislation gets passed and everybody knows that there's some problems. So I think there is some anticipated cleanup. And the Illinois State Association counties work with the zoning officials. They'll be at the table.
Okay, all right, because they do talk decommissioning, and it's not just the time frame, there's a whole host of other things in there. Yeah, so,
The
okay.
bonding, everything.
Thanks, Pete.
We will, coincidentally, I will be in Springfield tomorrow with Chairman Beeler and Thursday, so we'll have an opportunity to get in the ears of a couple.
Tell them we're really disappointed.
Larry's gonna send you a nasty gram. No, but I think we'll need to again convey that there is an expectation that there needs to be a little bit of some modifications.
Okay.
You can definitely see this is the direction it's going, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's happening. We're not stopping it. We're gonna clean it up.
We're at their mercy, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's got to be workable at the very least. Go ahead, Jim.
So, in our interviews here, they brought up about the drainage and all of that. We have no say, the drainage districts have literally no say in that at this point?
It's, right, I mean, it is a very limiting, we have very limited ability.
So the Duke Energy that we approved south of Morinville can go back and say, we no longer have to follow our commitments, or do they?
No, it doesn't, they can't go back. It's everything from, that's applied for when the law took effect forward. I mean, I guess they could
It certainly, there's
dissolve their
levers.
conditional use and come back through the process.
That would be a threat that they could say, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's a good example, Jim,
Yeah.
of all the work that you put in there to make that development as positive as possible. If this were to happen next year, you would have a lot less leverage
Right.
to make those kinds of.
Right.
And what's holding up Duke right now, my understanding is they can't get hooked up to the electric grid. Is that happened, or
I don't know that.
They can't get the
I-
That was a
approval?
hurdle that they, you know, they had.
have they passed that, or have they not? So the state passes all these laws and everything else, just giving my little bit of my editorial. The state passes all these laws without, and then want to follow it up with trailer bills to try to clean up their mess. And then they can't even hook them up in a timely fashion because they can't get through their own regulations.
That may be a part of it. I think there's some corporate priorities at Duke, where do they want to put all their resources?
They're in the process of selling their green energy division, is the last I've heard, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of balls in the air
Oh,
with
boy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're working on it. We're gonna wait and hear from Norm. We'll have a report back next month on
that. Yes,
it.
and we'll have, well, not only a report, we'll have draft amendments for the UDO to go forward, because that,
Okay.
we know that that's in place. And we would have to get that rolling, even if they come back and look at this in the early part of this quarter, that second quarter, that'll still have to
Okay,
get
well,
going.
when we hear something from the county association, from Norm, if we.
We'll send an email out.
Yeah, if you and I, we gotta sit down and do something different to
Yep.
get that nasty gram together, whatever it takes.
No problem.
So, yeah, Jim, let's finish this up though.
Yep, I only have one question. I don't understand on the windmills, the distance from the side of the blades, from the edge of the property, the setbacks and everything. I don't understand if that were to fall over, is that what that distance
Yeah.
gives?
Yeah.
So it doesn't go on a neighbor's house?
So it's a tip and it's a throw, so ice or something like that too, so, or tipping it. Yeah, or,
I interpreted that, if it's a 100-foot blade, it has to have a 110-foot setback.
yeah.
But, and we had 220,
2.2, yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're having to reduce it in
Yeah.
half.
No, it's just, okay. I got it. Community buildings, participating residences. Okay, thank you, staff, on that, but we will move along. And we got a couple more things to talk about. Adam, discussion and direction.
Yep.
HOA compliance affidavits.
So this is, after our conversation last month, the direction we got from the committee was to put together an affidavit that would essentially really define what, when people are coming in for a building permit application, that they may have conflict, they may not, they may have a homeowners association, and that this proposal may be in conflict. Essentially what this does is going through the state's attorney's office, this says, hey, you guys go work that out with yourselves. because we just have no role in it, and we don't want to posture in the manner that we do. We don't want anybody to get any disillusion that there may be.
Okay, and that would be presented every time that type of situation comes forward, and the
Correct.
state's attorney's office has approved the language that we're gonna use?
Correct.
Okay.
They've, one more thing,
No,
sorry.
no, 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 it's about this.
This will go on our website, on our web portal applications, and then it'll also be updated on all of our permit applications that are printed out.
Okay.
All the various things.
Okay, that's what we asked, it sounds like it got done.
Perfect.
Appreciate that, go ahead, Carolyn.
I guess the only thing I would have added, I guess, in the end, because of the discussions that we've had, is it says, I further express that I'm responsible for notifying said authorities governing the subdivision for which this property is in the intended scope of work. But I think I might have taken that one step further and said, and acknowledge that failure to do so could result in litigation from said authorities or said organizations. I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's one more thing. It's enough to say, well, you should have told them, but it's another to say, that could result in litigation. But I don't know, I mean, obviously that was left out, so I don't know if that was even considered.
Yeah, I'll defer that to the state's attorney's office.
Yeah.
Maybe you can run that past Norm, but I would suspect there's a reason that's not in
I
there.
say the concept, and really when we put this together, went back to when we did this very same exercise for the fire districts. And the concept that I recall in that, going through those notes, was that we're not party to it. So whether it's litigation or whether it's an argument or exile from the subdivision, whatever the penalty was, it just wasn't our argument or involvement with it. Now that said, I'll certainly run just what you had said right by Norm and see what his thoughts are on it.
Just more if it's like, here's the worst case scenario. It's not just like, okay, you really ought to tell them. It's, you ought to tell them because this could happen. But
Sure.
maybe, but you're right, that's not our, so.
Well,
okay.
we're not lawyers, so, like, I'm always careful to use legal language. I mean, I've been told a number of times, you're not a lawyer. Like, okay,
But
so,
you make laws.
well, I'm just saying,
You stated
not a
out loud,
licensed
Leslie.
attorney, so.
So, okay, I think we got that resolved, and Adam will follow up on Carolyn's question and make sure that the state's attorney weighs in on any language that we might change on that for now. And I have a feeling that he'll let us know, so that's good. Moving on to 9.4, discussion and direction on fee waiver criteria and procedure. Adam?
Yes.
I know you've been working on this.
Yes, so what was my big home run opener? There was some language that the state's attorney put together for us in terms of, is this criteria enforceable now, or do we need to go back immediately and revise the fee ordinance? They said that the criteria that we have here it's objective. It's objective. And so we can implement, we can use it, it really happened. So we don't necessarily need to, but it would be good to, because a lot of the ways that we've talked about in the past of enforcing this ordinance, to look at things administratively and kind of take and approach it with hey, that's what's right. And so if we miscommunicated something, then waive the fees. If the house burned down and it's a violation, they don't get double fees. So those kind of practical measures, the state's attorney advised us you want to build that paragraph in, because right now it doesn't really allude to it. So by going through this exercise, we uncovered that. So we're willing to and excited to bring that forward, but we can also bring forward fee waiver requests and provide, if the committee is still on board with this model, with this criteria for both fees and penalty fees, we can provide that to the committee as well as part of our memo that would go into it. So I guess we would still have fee waiver requests come in, but you would have a little bit more knowledge in terms of what we have talked through with applicants prior to those coming to you, which wasn't always the case.
Right. It got a little gray, and this is our opportunity to try to define where we should be at and how we can make that decision with some type of standardization. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're shooting for, is to be able to standardize any kind of penalties.
Yes.
Or waiver of the penalty. So go ahead, Carolyn.
So I know we're getting really tired, so of the examples of good cause, so I guess you're just looking through, this is what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing part of that recommendation that was that we were not having to know if something happened legitimately to cause the problem. So this is really good. But this under examples of good cause, the burden of imposing some fees or penalties when that burden is outweighed by the detriment caused. I guess I'm not exactly sure where that's
I can
getting
give you
at
an
because-
example.
Okay, good, because sometimes people come in and say, well, you know, this penalty is a burden.
Yeah.
Well, then you should have followed the rules, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so,
So that wouldn't be a good one. Where that one plays in would be where we've applied it, is in situations of hoarding, where it's not money well spent to have somebody pay, let's say they did a water heater, and sometimes we'll, however we come about to know it, we'll compel them to give us a path to get to that water heater, and hey, it's brand new, great. Get in there, get a permit, we'll keep working with you on this other stuff. We wouldn't double fee that person, because that $75 or $300, whatever it might be, is gonna be much better spent on hiring somebody for a couple hours to help them remove garbage, or get a dumpster in there and have their family. So those are the types of situations that would come. But we wouldn't, if someone built a shed without a permit and hey, I didn't know, that wouldn't really compel us to offer that.
Okay. And then we did have the instance where the deposit was put down and he didn't realize it was non-refundable.
Yep.
Though if he would have read the fine print, he would have, but now we've corrected that and made it more substantial notification.
Yes.
So that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any more on that today? Future topics? Anybody have anything? Adam's got quite a bit of stuff to bring to us that we discussed today. Go ahead, Carolyn, you have something for future?
no, I can follow up with staff.
You making a motion to adjourn? Is that what you said?
I did, thank
Okay.
you.
Seconded by Carl. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Thank you all.